we will get started soon. We need to give it a little bit more time for council to get on the meeting.
Oh, the mayor's here. We now have a quorum.
I don't show him connected yet.
Okay, let's see.
What's the matter?
Christina, we do have a quorum.
Are we using the same packet from last week? I'm assuming yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are we ready to do roll call?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't know if, so the mayor doesn't have any audio or video connected yet. I don't know if he's working on that, but.
Shall I go ahead and start the meeting then?
Yes, I think we should.
Okay.
6 o'clock.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the special meeting of the City of Marina City Council meeting. Let's see, I don't have like an agenda to go off of for today, but let's call the meeting to order and roll call, please.
Councilmember Medina Dirksen. Present. Councilmember Burnett. Councilmember Berkeley.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Biella.
Here.
Mayor Delgado. He's here.
Okay, so we do have a quorum.
Okay. Do we, okay, we do. I see the mayor's, well, I don't know what you got, the image on his, do we know he's on? I know he doesn't have audio, but he doesn't have visual either.
I don't know. I just heard that he didn't have audio.
Doesn't appear he has those icons.
Okay, well,
next
we
to
do
him.
have a quorum.
Do have a quorum.
Even if the mayor is not behind that, looks like a picture of a sunset. Okay,
Okay, so we, even though this is a special meeting, do we do the moment of silence and pledge? Is that on the agenda? I'm kind of going off of our regular meeting format.
it is not on the agenda this evening. There is an agenda on the city website for tonight, and we don't have that item on. The first item is to introduce an ordinance and read by title only and waive further reading. And we also have a public hearing, which is going to scheduled to commence at 6 p.m. And according to the Fair Maps Act, we do need to entertain the public hearing at 6 p.m. So I think it would be, if council has some comments, this would be a time for that. And then perhaps you may want to entertain comments from the public, open the public hearing and entertain those comments before introducing an ordinance. And of course, you need this evening to select a map, a new district map. That is the purpose of the ordinance. So.
Okay, thank you. Here's our mayor. Do we have a presentation from the demographers tonight again?
We do, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll kick us off and then we'll get it over to Dr. Tilton to take you through the analysis. So I just wanted to remind the public and the City Council that this is the fourth hearing. So this is our final public hearing within our districting process. I'm sorry, Bob?
It's actually the 5th.
Okay.
We had a public hearing on the 15th.
Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. It's the 5th, technically the 5th public hearing. This is our final one. We began this process, if you remember, back in June of last year. We've had some other public hearings, and we've also had a couple of workshops for the public. In that time, we've collected a total of 59 maps from the public, which is a astounding number, especially from a community our size. So our community has really participated in it this year. That's a lot to feel good about. So while these great results, though, they've also given you a lot of options. So what we've tried to do is do our best to help the council to weed through some of the options to find, through different ways of looking at the analysis, different to pare it down so that you can make your selection this evening of a difficult group of maps, because a lot of them are really good. So Dr. Jeff Tilton is going to take you through the analysis and why some maps pass the test and some maps don't, and how they're grouped together, and how why some are better candidates. And after we go through the process tonight and you select a map, the final step is going to be to look at the sequencing. So we'll let you know after you select the map how the sequencing is going to line up for that particular map, meaning who will be up for election when, based on the districts, once again. So with that, I'd like to kick it over to Dr. Tilton, and he can walk us through the analysis.
Hey, good evening again, everyone. Matt, you're going to share the screen and lovely PowerPoint. It's great to see everyone. I'd like to echo essentially everything that Matt said. Appreciate you giving that introduction as well. I wish to add one additional thing, and that is to honor all of the individuals who have participated in this process. Tonight, information that we are sharing tonight, the information you've had for the last 2 weeks, none of that was done in a vacuum. This was done through a unified approach, through members of the community, through an outstanding outreach program facilitated by Pepe Smith. And as you mentioned, it's not just these public hearings. There's been several meetings, several hours that's been invested in positioning council for success. And so here's to all those who participated in this process, and I'd like to congratulate council on your forthcoming decision in the next few minutes. Next slide, please. So as Matt had alluded to, we have been at this since July 6th. For those that participated in this rodeo the last time or the initial time, we had much more time. And I know that the city staff and I, we did that with purpose. And the intention is March 1st, having the second reading of the ordinance. And as I shared with Matt, while I love the city of Marina, when I was raising my kids who are now adults, once a month we would come over the hill from the Central Valley and we'd stay in Marina, put a lot of our money in Marina. And but I told them, this is my last time I'm working with the city of Marina. 10 years from now, I'll be 70, and I don't think I'll be doing any redistricting. So it's great working with y'all, but I still love Marina. Next slide, please. So we must follow federal laws. And I know that you've heard this a bunch of times, but I think out of context, as we're looking at tonight, while we are looking at equal population among the 4 districts in the city, and we're truly wanting to respect the Federal Voting Rights Act without having any discriminatory practices or anything, and we want no racial gerrymandering, all that, those are givens. Those are non-negotiable. But the difficulty folks, I know folks have encountered as they went through and helped us out with this process is we're bound to create districts based on census blocks. And census blocks, I like to say, are like snowflakes. There's no two alike. And some cities or jurisdictions, I should say, have some really interesting census blocks. I'm working with a neighboring jurisdiction, and it includes Pacific Grove and the Pebble Beach area. And you wouldn't believe some of the strange census block designs that we must follow, and how they just reach around particular proposed districts, etc. So while it might seem really simple to say, hey, let's just move this over here and move that over there, and then we'll connect these two and all that, it's not as simple as that, especially because we have to follow the equal population piece as number one. Then we're talking about the Fair Maps Act that the city attorney had mentioned earlier a little bit, that we must follow in this particular order. To the extent practical, our council districts must be geographically contiguous. And you're gonna hear me talk about some of the draft maps that are non-contiguous. And then to the extent practical, we don't want to divide neighborhoods and communities of interest. Again, we have to take into consideration how these particular areas are drawn. While we'd love to have the perfect map where all the neighborhoods and all the communities of interest are not divided, sometimes it's not practical, especially as we're looking at the way the census blocks are designed and how many people are in those census blocks. And we want to have easily identifiable boundaries, and we want our districts to be compact. And we shall not favor or discriminate against a political party. And so, but it all goes back to number one, equal population. Next slide, please. So through the very, very, very robust outreach piece that the city invested in through the assistance with Tripeppi Smith, especially the brilliant idea of sending out draft map opportunities for folks in a mailer that solicited, or excuse me, brought in a lot of draft maps for us. These were the questions that we were asking throughout this process, talking about neighborhoods, communities of interest. Next slide, please. And again, I know this is a repeat, but we might have some folks looking on it the very first time. And these were some of the comments that we received through email and through our workshops that we held back in November. And we did have some repeats, so these have been edited for clarity and brevity. Next slide, please. So the map. As he mentioned, we had a slew of maps, and for when you're looking at the maps to consider, clearly green is good, or go, because those are of equal population. They are contiguous candidates, etc. Those that are shaded red, that means their deviation is above the threshold of 10%. And so those we cannot consider. And then you'll see an asterisk next to some of those in the red. They're, in addition to not being equal populated among the four districts, their districts are not contiguous. Next slide, please. So out of respect and out of honor for those who did submit maps, we would like to publicly recognize those individuals through their map submission. When you see map 101 and 114, it's just a numbering sequence. When you see a map that starts with the lowercase d, that means that that map was drawn using District R. And the data that were used during the time that we used District R were with estimated data, since the census data didn't come out until August, but California prisoner adjusted data didn't come out until late September. So again, thank you for all those who submitted maps that were not necessarily going to be considered tonight because they were not population balanced or they're not contiguous. Next slide, please. Same thing here. So these are the maps for consideration, and working with staff, we've come up with a table to help you, to position you for success as you look at selecting a map going forward for the next 10 years. Next slide, please. And the rubric that we've based on a lot on the resolution that we passed at the previous public hearing. The next slide, please.
Actually, Jeff, if I could explain really quickly, the matrix here that they're looking at, just to be clear, the first three columns on the left are the ones that were included in the resolution that the council passed the last meeting. The other three were just additional considerations that the council can consider. They're not things that were passed by the council. Those are just additional things that are aspects of different parts of the city that sometimes are important to us, that we put in there as additional things to consider. So you can take or leave that as it's useful to you.
So this is just a review of the third public hearing, and I want to apologize right away. This particular public hearing presentation is not of as high quality presentation as your previous one, since it was my wife who presented to you last time. But I do see a hand from a council member raised, and Mayor, do we want to take that now or do we want to wait?
If it's a burning question, we can take it now. If it's a less than burning, we can do it all later after your presentation.
It has to do with the last map, so it is pretty burning. Not the last map, the last page where he broke down the boundary submissions of available for
Okay,
adoption.
so if it's something that can't wait, let's do it now, or if it's really quick, let's do it now.
Okay,
But if
I'd like to do it now. It's a quick one.
Let's give it a shot. Okay, go ahead, Christine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Going back to the matrix that you had provided that had all the district boundaries eligible for adoption. Now, no, you just passed it. No, there we go. Can I take your attention to council additional considerations for district components? All districts have open space. I went through that and that didn't seem particularly accurate. So these numbers, I just want to point out, several of them would be one more number up. So I just wanted to know, how was this determined?
I guess specifically, I'd have to look at which map you're talking about, but it is a bit subjective. I guess open space was meant to be more of like the airport has open space because we have lots of habitat areas. That versus, say the center of, the Fort Ord, area that like Cypress Knolls would not be considered necessarily open space right now. But the future Del Monte extension would be. It's a little bit subjective. So yeah, that's why I said, if you don't find this all entirely helpful, then.
No, it was very helpful. It's just not accurate. That's all I wanted to point out. So some of these numbers, if some of you are going by the bumping of these numbers, just understand that some of them are bumped up one more because they do have open space. That's all I have to say, but thank you very much for that consideration.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Christina. So let's continue. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, so this is not new visuals that you've seen. Shalice Telton presented these to you last time. They were broken down per slide, so I've grouped them together. Next slide. Group 2 is 2A and 2B. Next slide, please. Group 3 and Group 4, which were again, and then Group 5 and 6 were the others. And then here, next slide for tonight. These were submissions after the third public hearing. That's why they're numbered starting with the number 5 in the 500 series, if you will. So that's group public hearing 4A. That's the group that they were submitted after public hearing 3. Public hearing 4B, these were submissions that NDC and staff worked together and separately to try to meet the flavor of the resolution you passed at the end of the third public hearing. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So this is the resolution again that you passed. It's in the agenda packet. It should be on the website for folks if you want to see it. It passed on a 5-0 count. Next slide, please. And so we took out excerpts from that resolution to try to see if we could come up with some candidates for you to help with your decision making. We looked at, and they were noted by council, maps 105 and 209 did have some particular flavors that you liked as part of your resolution language. We tried to capture some of those flavors with map 503, 504, 505, and 506. Next slide, please. And as Matt had mentioned, after a map is selected, then we will go through the the sequencing process, so we can make sure we're all aligned going forward for the next 10 years. Next slide, please. And that concludes the presentation. We'll hand it over to the mayor for public hearing, discussion, and action. Thank you very much again.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Before we go to the public hearing, do any council members have any questions at this point? Kathy, no. Christina, go ahead, Christina. And then Kathy.
Thank you very much. This is for the question for NDC. Do we have to, Mr. Tilton, do we have to be in agreement what our communities of interest are? Yes. Do we, or Yes. Do we have to all agree as a council what our communities of interest are?
So I'm gonna give an explanation, and then if legal counsel wants to come in, he can. But the law says, to the extent practical, the extent possible, not to divide neighborhoods or communities of interest. And now that is, as I've mentioned to other jurisdictions, that is essentially number 5 on the list of priorities when you're looking at redistricting, particularly for cities and or counties. So you don't necessarily have to be in agreement, is how I interpret the law, but I'll defer to the city attorney if he has a different opinion.
Go ahead, Bob.
No, my opinion is that you do not need to all agree on what the communities of interest are. There need not be unanimous agreement on what they are. The action that you'll be taking tonight will be introducing an ordinance, and on that, and then subsequently adopting the ordinance at a regular meeting. And on that, you must have 3 affirmative votes in each case. So certainly not unanimous.
Anything else, Christine, at the time?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Okay, let's go to Kathy Bell, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we're just asking questions at this point rather than giving some comments about some of the maps.
I think for short questions, council, we can do what we want here. Would you, council members, like to allow brief comments, long comments before public hearing or not? I could go either way.
I'd be in favor of brief comments. I'd like to get to the 14 attendees as soon as possible.
Okay. Councilmember Berkeley, what do you think?
I'm fine with brief comments and then hearing the public.
Okay, so let's save our longer comments for after the public, but any short comments or questions would be appropriate now. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so let me start with a question. Dr. Tilton said that on one of the charts that there's no racial gerrymandering. And so I just want to understand the issues of race in this districting, because I understand racial gerrymandering, which we've seen throughout our country, is that certain groups, racial groups, are split up so that they have less impact in terms of the voting, their voting power. So I understand that. But in formulating these maps, on the back of each map, you do start off with racial breakup of each of the districts. So on the one hand, I understand racial gerrymandering, but on the other hand, we have all the racial and ethnic breakdown, and I just don't know how to use them per se. When I was looking at this, I was thinking, well, does that mean that if we have a more balanced racial breakup on each of the district, that's better? Or, for example, if I had a balanced map among races and ethnic groups, but I was trying to put a predominantly rental overlay on that, then it changed, because oftentimes the high rental district will have a predominance maybe of certain racial groups. And so how should we look at this issue of race across the districts?
So a couple of things on that. What the courts will use with respect to diluting the voting strength of the protected class, and in this case, we're looking at Hispanic, non-Hispanic, Black, Asian Pacific Islanders, and Native Americans. They're going to look to see if we are doing one or two things. Number one is, and it might go along with your question with respect to renters. None of the maps in Marina, none of the maps, draft maps, I should say, are able to create a district in the city that is what we call majority minority. It's a fairly non-Hispanic white community. while there is, and again, what we're looking at is the citizen voting age population to make that determination, not necessarily the overall racial breakdown. It's what is the citizen voting age population. So it's not necessarily those who are who are registered to vote. It's those who are eligible to vote. Okay, and so the courts will use those data points to see if there's any gerrymandering occurring. One of two things could happen that jurisdictions and a demographer would avoid the jurisdictions from doing this is what we call packing. And you would pack a bunch of protected class individuals into a district to say, see, we created a district of the protected class, but in essence, you're diluting the voting strength jurisdiction-wide by doing that. The alternative to that, or excuse me, the opposite of that is what we call cracking. And so you're cracking the protected class and diluting them from across the entire jurisdiction. And so they're not able to have an opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. So that's essentially what we're looking at as it relates to racial gerrymandering and respecting the Federal Voting Rights Act. We could not find a way to legally create a majority minority district. Now, you could look across some of these maps and you could say it is majority minority with respect to all of the protected class. So for example, I'm looking at map 104 as an example here. In District 1, it has 24% Hispanic and 28% Asian Pacific Islanders.
I'm sorry, Dr. Tilton. If just for ease for us, I mean, we can be looking at our own maps, but I'm wondering if we could be putting it on the screen so that the public can be following with us. So
I don't have access to that.
Okay, Matt, can we put up 104?
Well, really just in a nutshell, I was coming to a conclusion, Councilmember Berkeley, in that there is a majority with respect to the protected class in that case, and that's it. In most cases, in the city's draft maps, you'll have 3 of the districts that are a majority. Yeah, so if we can zoom in on that, example, Matt.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, so if we're looking at citizen voting age population, the third section down, and then you see District 1 has 24% Hispanic, and then Asian Pacific Islanders 28. Well, that's going to be 52%. So now you're going to get a majority minority, and so, but it's not necessarily a single majority, for example, Hispanic, etc. So that's how we use the data. Those are the data points that we use when we're looking at diluting the voting strength of protected class, etc. It's a great question.
Okay, so in essence, when you say majority minority, you're really talking about majority white versus the other percentages of any of the minority, adding those up.
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right.
Yeah.
So it's also maybe a factor of when we say, for example, a percentage that might be of a minority, for example, whether you're saying it's predominant or maybe a sole stacking or packing. So it's never 100%, as you say. I mean, we can never get any district to do that, but the words predominant and versus sole representation of any race or ethnic group. Is that kind of how we should conceive of this to be sure that we're not stacking or cracking or
you're not, and again, because we're using equal population, we're using the census blocks to do this. It appears that the way the citizens in the city of the citizens in the city of Marina are spread out, you really don't have a particular area that's predominantly a particular protected class.
Mm-hmm.
We would advise you strongly to consider that or those particular maps to adopt to avoid a potential lawsuit down the road.
Okay, so
But,
in
you know,
that chart that Councilwoman Christina Medina Dirksen just referred to, I don't know what, in ours it says table 2 and yours says, yeah, that one. Well, that's map 105.4, but the overall map, we can assume that anything on there you have already vetted and we don't have a problem with racial breakup
Correct.
on any
Correct.
of those, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I just want to make a very brief comment on how, with all these maps, and I've gone through all of these on this page, this is how I conceived of my choices, so to speak. First, I looked at whether the maps had the Preston Abrams with the Central Marina on, because that was something that I expressed the last meeting that was really important to me. And then I looked over on the total points. And so between those two things that I was able to narrow down the field for myself, just so that everyone can understand, you know, how I had this system for myself. And to Christina's point, Councilwoman Medina Dirksen's point, the open space one, there's only 4 that are checked off, and those are, to me, less important too. But if you look at just the 4 that were marked, if you just take them out because everybody else didn't have open space, then you actually have just 1 point less for those 4. And so I'm rethinking how I look at that, but that didn't affect anyway my choices because they were already on the lower side, or the one that was marked with 6 points, which is, you know, the one of the higher scores, it just knocked it down to 5 instead of 6. So just FYI, that's how I incorporated the new concern. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. And I'll be as brief as possible before we go to public comment, to give people maybe a chance to know what I'm thinking and maybe help me out, you know, if I'm thinking wrong. So there's a group of these that are not population balanced or not contiguous. So I didn't consider those further. There's a group of these that split Abrams and Preston Park and put those 2 neighborhoods in different districts. To me, that's a problem. And so for me, I put those aside. There's another group that includes Preston Park and Abrams with Sea Haven and the Dunes. And I think those people that live in Preston and Abrams Park would be more unlikely to be able to represent city council, be on city council, if they need to compete with the higher incomes, even though there might be a lot of renters in the Dunes and Sea Haven. And so then what the remaining is a small group that keeps Abrams and Preston together, joins them with Central Marina, usually District 4, but the number doesn't really matter, but that most eastern portion of Central Marina. And then I look at the next priority is which ones have the most solid multifamily renters. Those are usually in the core of Lake Drive and Owen Avenue, where we have a lot of diversity and a lot of lower income folks. So it would be wonderful if we could have a district that would give them the best shot at being on city council. If you're a multifamily renter and you're of a lower economic strata and you're of a diverse community, that would be a slice of Marina that's not usually represented on our city council. That's what I looked at. All things being equal, besides that, you know, that they're legal in every way. They don't look weird. Their optics are good. But those are how I ended up. And then I looked at the ratings that Matt gave us: 6 points, 5 points, 4 points, 3 points, whatever points they have each one. Those are the considerations that I used to end up with. I don't need to say which ones, but I ended up with about 4 maps. And I think all of them or maps of the latter cohort of maps that the consultant just told us they put together. Is that true, Jeff, that the consultants team put together all the 500s?
No, Mayor, that's not correct. We had some submissions from the community, and then staff and I worked together on a couple. So,
Okay.
yeah, we're trying to not share who the authors were
That's fine.
but yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
So all of my 4 finalists that didn't fit in those other groups are in the 500s, and I thought those were the latter ones, the ones that were done most recently, and I assume they might have been done by the consultant, but it doesn't matter. You're right. The author doesn't matter, and I don't need to know. Okay, let's go back to Mayor Pro Tem Kathy Biala. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. I just had a quick thing because I failed to mention this. So when I used the point system, after I had looked at those maps that included Preston Abrams with Central Marina, I only looked at the top scoring ones. So I only looked at 6, 5, and 4. I felt that I could eliminate the 1, 2, and 3s. So that's how I arrived at sort of narrowing it down for myself. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the public hearing, which is really just public comment, but we call it a public hearing because we're about to pass an ordinance. So before we do that, we have to have what's called a public hearing. So we're going to open the public hearing and go to Peter first. You each have 4 minutes, up to 4 minutes. Hello, Peter. Oops, Peter, I might have just muted you by accident. Okay, Peter, you should be unmuted now.
Yes, good evening. At the last public hearing, the council discussed the Preston and Aprons Park and gave direction to staff and to move it to Central Marina, but so that it's separate from the $1 million homes. What the council didn't discuss and showing a concern with any property as Veterans Transition Center or the the apartment off 2nd Avenue at all. Additionally, why the city council gave direction to staff and consultant to move Preston and Apron Park to separate from $1 million home. The council didn't show any concern for the low income and very low income apartments, like the charge apartment or mobile home park, and they associate with the $700,000 to $800,000 homes. So it's it's one of the discrimination. And I look at the point is it's arbitrary, and in moving the Preston Apron Park to Central Marina, the council violated the California redistricting guideline. In the council separated Sea Haven into 2 districts.
Right.
It should be common sense in 1 district. So I look at the table, even the point to a different point. It's very arbitrary. And I look into the map the consultant just presented for the council consideration. I look at map, 202, 208, 209, 105, 501, 502, 503, 505, 507. And I noticed that those map is moving, dilute the population, the Hispanic, from one map from 41% to 28%, and that's gave disadvantage to Hispanic. In addition, the voter turnout of Hispanic is in the 20s, while for the white it's in the 45-50%. So those maps just favor white and penalize Hispanic. And I asked the council to look at the map, 202 and 208, And for District 2, maybe it stands straight out to the Pacific Ocean. I think some community members look at that fairly reasonable, those two maps, 202 and 2A. And those maps don't have any baggage to go with it. Because I look at all the map, and some map, some council want to be re-elected, and some candidates want to be potential council member, and they have self-interest. And I think I'm fairly impartial and look at the city as a whole. And I ask you to consider map 202 and 208. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Peter. You brought up a point I did not realize before. I appreciate that. At least one point, maybe more. Okay, let's go to Audra Walton. Hello, Audra.
Good evening, everyone. I hadn't realized that I had raised my hand as early as I did, but I just want to say thank you all for being here with us. I appreciate all of the time that we've spent already on this. I just got off work, so I'm not quite sure if I missed the presentation, and I am just going to read my prepared statement, if that's okay. You can tell I can running in. And I have no glasses on, so this is going to be fun. I apologize. I've recently been working 6 days a week and didn't have an opportunity to update the map that I submitted originally for the first round of consideration, although I asked for the opportunity to do so. So as it stands, I understand that it is indeed important to, I'm sorry. It is my understanding that the city must move from at-large elections to districts, and there is absolutely nothing the city can do to change this fact. It is my understanding correct? And that's question number one. Who imposed the time frame to have this transition complete? Question number two, is there any way possible to move the date of completion to a later date? Is question number three. Can we have a different demographer? As question number four, I'm not satisfied with the way that, sorry, I can't read without my glasses. I'm not satisfied with the way that the city of Marina has been treated by NDC. I never saw the Facebook ad. I never received emails or saw an advertisement about this on Nextdoor. Communities of interest, with respect to communities of interest for fair and accurate representation, a possible scenario is that Preston and Abrams Park will be in the same district as Sea Haven and Dunes. This is of concern for me, as these homes are selling on the market at rates over $1 million. Preston and Abrams is city-owned housing and rent-controlled. Historically, in the United States, communities with such socioeconomic differences have not moved together as a cohesive unit. This is Marina. Most people I interact with that aren't from here tell me how different we are from other communities we are referred to as so nice, welcoming, kind, big-hearted, and warm. We are surprisingly different, and that's a quote. I can't determine whether the city will change as higher income earners continue to move into the new neighborhoods and change our demographics. I can say that I do not believe the concerns will be the same as recent conversations I've been in. I found that people moving into these areas are choosing to enroll their children in private schools and not in PUSD schools. So I can only imagine what else the public offers that the newcomers will also not choose to participate in. However, the children living in Preston and Abrams do attend the public schools, and they do participate in local public offerings such as visiting and playing at the Teen and Youth Center. I do not know that Preston and Abrams Park should be absorbed in with Sea Haven and the Dunes, and if they'd have good representation to advocate for the things like the Teen and Youth Center or our public schools. NDC promised we would love District R, but then we couldn't use it. CalPERS wasn't available, wasn't made available on the website. I'd really like for us to push pause on this and move away from NDC and choose another person to work with, if at all
Thank you,
possible.
Audra.
Thank
Audra, I
you.
have to jump in because you are at 4 minutes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Audra.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next person who would like to speak. Brian McCarthy, welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Just real quickly, I think you have lots of good maps to choose from, so I think you're in a great position once again. I continue to have a couple concerns. I echo Audra Walton's concerns about Preston and Abrams being lumped in with the Dunes and Sea Haven. Unfortunately, I don't have the tools to tell you why I have those concerns, but it's just kind of a gut feeling that may not be the right move. So for that reason, I tend to support maps that take Preston and Abrams and move them north towards the airport instead of south. The second concern, again, that I've mentioned before, just making sure that we don't overly disenfranchise too many folks that couldn't vote in the last election and again will not be able to vote in this election. And I think most of the maps address that issue as long as you keep sequencing kind of relatively the same as it looked before. Again, I think most of the maps that you're looking at do that. And then the last comment I'll make is it sounds like you don't have a lot of members of the public attending tonight. If that's the case, I hope you'll consider maybe giving another minute or minute and a half after a motion is made. I know that's entirely at your discretion, but I would certainly support that for this particular meeting. Thanks and good luck.
Thank you very much, Brian. Let's go to Paula Pillow, and welcome, Paula.
Evening, Bruce. I sent in fairly detailed written comments. I don't know how many of you had a chance to read them. Just a couple of housekeeping things up front. I think on that table number 2 in the staff report, map 206 was not scored correctly. It says 2, and I think the score, there were 3 boxes checked. So I did point that out. I have changed my mind in some ways as to my approach on this. After seeing some of the additional statistics that were provided by NDC. But I do agree with you, Mayor, that those that split Preston and Abrams Park, which have been together for 25 years, share resources, management, they are a community and they shouldn't be split. So I immediately ask that you eliminate the following maps that do split Preston and Abrams apart. And those are map 209, 401, 402, 503, 504, 505, and 506. There are some other maps, including 2 that were ones that I submitted, that I'm also asking you exclude from consideration. And the reason for that is they do not adequately represent the renter versus owner-occupied houses in the city as the overall percentages of 57-43. And so those maps that I ask you to eliminate for that reason are 105, 501, 502, 507, and 508. Now, there are some additional maps that I don't really have a problem with, but they look a little janky in that they have pieces from here and there. It's clear that people were having a difficult time making the population balance. And although I don't want you to necessarily eliminate them from consideration, they, in my opinion, they could be set aside for those that are superior. And those are maps 101, 104, 107, 108, 112, 202, 203, 211, 212, and 215. Maps 509 and 212 really seem unusual in the way they have spread it out. So that left me with 7 maps, which are 113, 111, 206, 201, 208, 109, and 110. Where I have moved to and changed my perspective, and it was based on looking at the rental versus owner-occupied numbers, the percentages, is that I do not believe that Preston and Abrams should be combined with Central Marina. I don't find it an issue with combining them. We keep saying just the Dunes and Sea Haven, but there's more than the Dunes and Sea Haven. There's promontory housing, there is the apartments, and there will be additional, I believe, rentals to be added in with Sea Haven. And the other, I think, misunderstanding is there are people in Preston and Abrams who we keep talking about it as though it's all lower income. It's not all lower income. In fact, some people have a very high household income. It's necessary because of some of the extremely high rents that have been recently levied for new incoming people. So I don't have the problem with it being combined. We have some other housing here to be considered as well, which is the 5 or 6 transitional housing, the Veterans Transition Center. So there isn't really the problem that I thought that I had first identified with combining it with the dunes. But again, I'd like to reiterate that the ones that I am most concerned and think should be given the most consideration are 113, 111, 206, 201, 208, 109, and 110. And I think those are all good maps, and you should be able to find something worth considering there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula. Okay, we'll close public comments and get to any questions. Audra asked why are districts necessary, or she commented they are, and why not have a later date to finish this process? And can we answer that, Jeff or Matt?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes. So the reason we're redistricting is because in 2019, the city council chose to go to districts based on some outside pressure from an attorney. So you opted to go to districts. So every 10 years now, when the census is redone, we have to look at repopulation balancing. So that's why we're going through this process today. In terms of the deadlines, that's statutory. So we have until April 17th in order to have our maps selected so that we're ready for the election coming up here at the end of this year.
And why can't the date be later? Is it because we have to do it tonight to get it on the ballot, or to comply with the regulations?
Yeah, so we are, we need to have 2 readings of the ordinance plus 30 days to cure that ordinance. So if you were to do the first reading, adopt your first reading tonight, our second reading, we're looking at doing on March 1st plus 30 days gets us to April 1st. So that's 17 days before that statutory deadline.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then as far as who decides on the dates, that's basically a state, or is that a federal?
State law.
State.
State law.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And the ordinance must be adopted at a regular meeting.
okay. So the dates are decided on by federal. And then I think that's the last thing she said, but I do want to comment on the high school comment. If it matters to you, Audra, this semester Marina High School has 700 students, which is the largest number they've ever had by far. I think they got up to 580 once. And the reason is because they are getting students from East Garrison, they are getting students from the Dunes and Sea Haven. And their facilities are improving. So there's less reasons not to go there because now they have better facilities, which was a reason in the past. So it's kind of surprising, but Marina High School is way above projections that were made in 2016. Okay. There were comments made by Brian and Peter and Paula, but no other questions unless anybody has any that I missed. But Lisa, you have your hand up, so why don't you go next?
Thank you. So I heard it sort of alluded to, and actually I think maybe Audra mentioned it, and also in ongoing conversations I've had with community members, it is a lot of frustration being expressed about why we're going to districts. And sort of the common conversation is, oh, we're being forced to. And I think that it is important to recognize that while this is the process that we're in right now, we can, and it will probably have to be in the next election cycle in 2024, because I think we've missed the date now, but we can put it on to the ballot to make a measure to return back to all positions at large. We would have to amend our city charter, is my understanding. So I just do want to put that back out there as part of an ongoing conversation. Am I correct in that, City Attorney?
I'll say provisionally, I think it would probably require an amendment of the charter. There's really
Right.
no process laid out in the law that I'm aware of to transition back from by-district elections to district elections at large. Charter cities, though, have considerable independence under state law, and I believe it would require that at a minimum. I don't know. I'm not familiar with any city that's done it, frankly.
But it is something that if we really felt strongly enough, we could explore down in the future, it's my understanding.
Certainly, yeah. Anything's possible.
I just wanted to include that in the conversation to just, for the people who have been so unhappy about us having to be in districts, that is something that we may want to continue in the public discourse. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. I wanted to make a few comments based on the public comments, not their questions so much. But Audra didn't want to include Preston Abrams with Sea Haven and the Dunes. Paula said it was okay. I think Brian said don't lump Preston Abrams with Sea Haven and the Dunes, and to ensure that we don't have as minimally double non-voters as possible, so that we minimize the number of people that couldn't vote in last election and also wouldn't vote in this election. So keeping them out twice is something he didn't want. And I was most taken by something Peter said, that a lot of these maps that I liked split Sea Haven, and that doesn't make any sense. You know, it doesn't make sense to split Preston and Abrams, but it doesn't make any sense to split Sea Haven in half. And the consequence could be that we could have 2 Sea Haven residents on city council, not the end of the world, but we were trying to get representation more likely from people that haven't been in the economic strata of council members or lower economic strata. So I was really looking for multifamily renters as sort of a community of interest. And so that's why I liked maps 501, 502, 507, 508, those 4, but all of them split Sea Haven in half. And so I'm really taken aback by those maps. I really like 508 the best of all of those, but it split Sea Haven. So if we did keep Preston and Abrams together, but didn't include them with Sea Haven, I guess I would be willing to give up on the multifamily rental district that was dominated by multifamily rentals by going to map 105, which is one I really hadn't considered before because it didn't have a good renters district. I should say multifamily. It does have, as Brian McCarthy has mentioned, sometimes we get high renters districts, such as district number 2 is 89% renters. That includes the VTC and the Village Apartments and the Dunes in Sea Haven and what will be a promontory that's coming in the past. So 105 is not a terrible map. It's probably the best at this point because those 4 different maps I liked coming into this meeting were all in the 500s, but I didn't realize that they split Sea Haven in half. So I like 105. I look forward to more discussion on that and other maps that other council members like. Okay, so let's go to Mayor Pro Tem Kathy Biala.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to just say that I didn't quite understand everything that Peter Lay just said. However, I think his sentiment went along with Audra Walton and Brian McCarthy in terms of looking at the socioeconomic divide between the Dunes and Sea Haven versus Preston Park and Abrams. So I just want to, say that I think he had the same sentiments. In terms of splitting Sea Haven, the what do we call these census blocks? Almost forced us to do that. And I had looked at some of these thinking, okay, why is it that this is reaching out in here? And one of the census blocks that was part of Abrams reached over into Sea Haven. So there was nothing you could do about that. It was not a logical way of organizing that. And it's one, I recall there was one very long census block. And we were told at the time that these census blocks, to change them would be rather a difficult issue to do. And so that I think that kind of explains some of that. I want to say that let's just talk about 105. One issue with 105 is that if we're looking at a rental district, in 105, District 2 with Sea Haven and Dunes, and also reaches into part of Central Marina, it has an 89% rental. Now, that is excluding Preston and Abrams. So how does that district that excludes Preston and Abrams has the highest percentage of renters? Whereas the district on this 105 map that includes Preston and Abrams has a 46% rental. So that doesn't make sense to me. I can't explain why District 2 has such a high rental, but the Central Marina portion and Preston Abrams has such a low one. I mean, I'm not sure the reasons for that, but I certainly wouldn't want to have Preston Abrams being included in a really low rental district. So that's my concerns about 105.
Kathy, you just mentioned you wouldn't want Preston Abrams to be combined with a real low rental district. I didn't understand that comment.
Okay, I see that this is the way I perceive Preston Abrams, that even though there are some sort of market rate homes there or market rate rentals, that I see it still as Marina's special, unique, affordable housing districts. And I don't know whether there's objections to conceptualizing it in that way, but because these are pretty long-term residents there in terms of renters, I would think that we would want to foster a district that includes them to be a high rental district, rather than in 105, it's actually a pretty low one. Whereas the Dunes and Sea Haven are in a district where supposedly there's 89% renters.
And Kathy, I also want to mention, to piggyback on your comments, in District 2 on map 105, where there's a surprising high number of renters, there's also 57% multifamily, which is also surprising for that 105. So we know it's influenced by the University Villages, but that's 108 units. We know it's influenced by VTC, but that's only about 55, 60 units, I think. So there's a lot of multifamily in District 2 that I have not considered. And that comes out in map 105. Okay.
Can I just say, continue a minute?
Sure.
Okay, so for me, the maps that I felt kept Preston Abrams together, and they would belong to a high rental district and kept separate from the Sea Haven and Dunes as much as possible. I mean, that's the scenario that's very important to me. And the renter districts are two maps, map 507 and 508. So these two kept Preston Abrams together in a high rent district and separated the Dunes and Sea Haven from them. And I think that between the two, it's a matter of the renter percentages. In map 507, District 4 has 63%, District 3 has 62%. Now, I consider that, almost 2/3 of the populations, but you could consider this maybe that we have two renter districts. That's District 4 and District 3. Map 508 has 71% rentals in District 4. So you can either say, well, it's good to have such a high percentage in one district versus two that are maybe 2/3, a little less, in two districts, predominantly renters. So those are the two that I like, and either one really is fine. Looking at the racial breakdown, I was pleased about those. So those are the two that I'm favoring at this moment, map 507 and 508.
Thank you, Kathy. Let's go to Councilmember Lisa Berkeley.
Thank you. Yes. So am I understanding, Kathy, that you're saying no to 105? Is that correct?
Yeah, because looking at it, I have some real concerns about that.
Right. I am agreeing with you. I think that 105 should be taken off. I'm looking at map 208 at the moment, and I'm looking at population distribution. And I think that it also takes care of a good balance of renters. I'm also, well, it's a mix. Oh, wait, hold on a minute. I just lost where did we go on the renters? Yeah, I think the renter to owner ratio is okay. Obviously, in District 1, there's the biggest closeness of it, but I think that 208, I especially feel drawn to because I am recognizing that two members of the public also have spoken out in a positive way about 208 and actually spoken in support of it. And so this was on one of my maps to be in favor of. It was actually one of my top 3. So I would just like to sort of put this one as a definite possibility. And hold on. I also had 110. 1 second. I think I'm going to hold back. I want to look through some of my notes a little bit further. So, but I'm in support of 208. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's go to Christina Medina Dirksen, Councilmember Christina Medina Dirksen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to lower my hand. I want to share that I held a couple Zooms meetings with the public about this to try and get some feedback, as much feedback as we possibly can. And I was struck by a couple things. Number one is what we consider renters in like the communities of interest, the Abrams and the Preston and the Abrams Park. I looked at overall the aesthetic of the map, what it actually looked like. My community of interest was more of the business community, like who's touching downtown, and walkability, schools, those kind of things. The Preston and the Abrams, yes, have a large amount of renters, but that's what we traditionally consider renters. There's a lot of multifamilies. I think if we took a look at who's renting out and who's living out in the dunes in Sea Haven, while Mr. Lay said they're $1 million homes, maybe they're high. How do I say this? I look at it who's living in those homes. I don't know how much money they make, but what the maps have told me that we've got a lot of renters in the dunes. We have a lot of renters in District 2. So I think that kind of set me apart from thinking who's living out there. I think we have a perception that just because these homes are big and huge, the census, the most recent census information didn't give me enough information to really make a solid conclusion about who's out there. So that being said, I know this side of town, the Walmart side of town, which would be right now the District 1 area, we're going to have new apartments coming out towards the dump coming online, a four-story apartment. So we know those are going to be renters. We've got new renters on Cypress and Central Marina. We've got Marina Station coming on board. So my mind went automatically to sort of taking a look at overall what's happening in our city. So that being said, Kathy, I don't mean to be a dump on your parade, but 507 and 508 are just not walkable for me. And they have that same problem that I was voicing concern around last time. So if you take a look at it, and this is a high task for all of us, so I appreciate everybody's homework on this. I've mulled over this for weeks. Those two present the same exact problem for the district that I was very critical of, putting the side of town by Monterey Bay Estates over with the Preston Abrams. Yes, they all touch on downtown, but that's about it. And I found that to be a bit of a problem for me in reaching my constituency out there. I shouldn't say a problem, more of an extra effort to go that way rather than walking my dog in my neighborhood. So for those reasons, the walkability factor in the communities of interest, I just didn't really find it there. The one map, so what I tended to do is, again, taking a look at the maps in a clean way. So map 104 looked really good to me because I found that most of it touched on the downtown corridors, meaning Reservation Road. And I'm sorry, it did lump together the Sea Haven with the dunes, with Preston and Abrams, which was a criticism or a concern for us in the past. Map 109 also does that rather nicely. Map 101 was very interesting to me. It kept a good amount of, it's a strong renter district, and it kept clear boundaries attached to me by some major roads like Carmel, Reservation, Del Monte, clearly delineated. There's a little finger coming down Rheindaler, but I looked at those, and those are mostly commercial properties. The one map that I did support was the 105. I was surprised by this one also. One problem we're going to probably look at is sequencing on that one. But I liked that it kept, for example, District 4 on both sides of Reservation. I'm sorry, of Del Monte. So you really got a flavor for the downtown district there. So I was thinking major corridors also. We're all going to have traffic in our communities of concerns, again, our schools. So most that I appreciated, or really that I mulled over. Oh, I also looked at map 503, which was very interesting. I like the content of it with the clearly, central District 3 that had the downtown district, and it did cut off the dunes. I'm sorry, Sea Haven from Preston and Abrams, as far as I can see. It was just a rather interesting map. So again, I took a look at these from an aesthetic point of view with not a lot of, as I call them, funky pockets. I didn't want funky pockets, and I wanted it to be clean. I want to thank Brian McCarthy for hosting a Zoom with me about this. So for those reasons, I can definitely, I think if we can agree on one, but for the sequencing, I think I liked map 105. Again, continuously, communities are being contiguous was important to me. Walkability, and I guess those are my comments. I poured over all the demographics on them, taking an eye to the future as well, what's going to be coming online, and not strictly painting our Abrams and Preston in a way that that would just sort of make them the city renters. I looked at renters all across the city. So that's all I have for now. And thank you all.
Great comments, everybody. Okay, let's go to Mayor Pro Tem Kathy Biala.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just wanted to comment on 208. Again, that one combines Sea Haven and Preston Park and Abrams and the dunes together, even though that comes out with the 89% renter. So for me, it's really important for Preston and Abrams to be not combined with the dunes and Sea Haven. I think we've seen that already in past elections where people running two candidates were from the dunes. So I really feel like we would overshadow the other areas because of that socioeconomic factor. So I'm looking at the ones that Christina, you have said you have an interest in, and I have to say that 104, 109, and 503 have that same issue for me. And, so for me, that's kind of, not something that I could agree with. And well, one of them sort of splits Preston and Abrams. So it's a little bit better, but it's got half of them going more towards downtown. Map 105 does keep Preston and Abrams together and going further into the downtown area, so to speak. And again, I just don't understand the 89% rental. And I also think we need to consider some of the points that were given. And this map was a way for us to not to sort of have some objective data, because we can all say, well, this one has, this, and, people like this one, or, I mean, we can all come up with variety of reasons why we like one map or another. And what I liked about that map, and taking out the open space one, because that kind of doesn't seem so relevant to me either, but taking out that one, it's sort of a way of allowing us to add up points on a scale. So some of these other maps, for example, Christina, the 503, for example, let's see, that one had 2 points. If you took out the open space, it has 2 points. And then 109, I can find that on here now. 109 has 4 points, but again, for me, the Preston Abrams with Central Marina doesn't have a check mark. And then 104 doesn't have a check mark in Preston Abrams with Central Marina because they're combining it with the dunes, and it has a overall score of 3. So I looked at the ones based on this chart, 4, 5, and 6. And actually, if you take out the open space, there is no 6. There's 4 5-point ones. So that would be, for me, the way that I would look at what of our choices and look at those 4.
Kathy?
Yes.
Sorry, just a quick question. Which ones of when you revised that chart, which are the 4 that you're saying?
Oh, okay. With 5 points, it's 505. And that one has half, they split Abrams and
Right.
Sea Haven. Then there is 504, which has a 5, but they also
It
split.
also splits it, right?
Yeah, so those would not be for me in particular. 508 has 5 and 507 has 5.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that were preferred by Christina has a point of 2, 109. How many does 109 have? I just had it here. 109. 109 has 4. Okay, so 109 has 4 points, 104 has 3 points, and 503 has 2 points. So I understand your concerns with walkability, et cetera, but there has to be also a way then that we use this chart that was developed. And so I'm relying on that. And 105 has 4 points, and it keeps together Preston Abrams, so that's more acceptable to me, but I still really lean towards the 507 or 508.
The problem though with the 507 and 508 is that the renter percentages are lower. So that's a little bit of a concern too, but I think you mentioned 109 as being a good possibility because it scored 4.
Well,
then-
109, let's see, where is that again? It doesn't have, it combines Preston and Abrams with the Dunes and Sea Haven. That's why for me, that would not be acceptable to me.
I see. The thing
Can
is,
someone,
oh,
go
I'm
ahead, Lisa.
So I have a question because we've come across this before. And actually, when we came up with the districts that we're talking now, we had a whole conversation about socioeconomic component not being something that we're supposed to be continue. And so that was part of how we wound up making the districts 2 and 3, I think it was. And so my concern is, especially having gotten a lot of grief for having that be a component at the time, I am, there are other ways to address that. And that can be, we can go back and revisit a healthier campaign finance laws. Because really, if people have money, or if they don't have money, but they have friends or a few people with money, there are always ways around it. So this is why I don't know that we want to have that be a major criteria in our decision making. Instead, we can work with the socioeconomic component through a mutually or full council agreed upon campaign finance. And I'd actually would like to hear, Dr. Tilton, if you could talk about how socioeconomic status plays into this or not, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And then I'll defer to the city attorney as well to fill in any gaps. Again, we go back to just the basic rules that we have to follow, the federal laws, equal population, respecting the Federal Voting Rights Act with respect to no discrimination, no racial gerrymandering, and then the Fair Maps Act. One might argue that the second criterion under the Fair Maps Act, neighborhoods or communities of interest, might argue that would fit in that particular area because community of interest is an area of a group of shared social and economic interests that could be impacted by city policies. So it is a data point that you can consider in that respect. And I'll defer to the city attorney for any gaps I may have created.
No, I think Dr. Tilton is absolutely correct. That the contiguous population that shares common social and economic interests and should therefore be included in a single district, represent communities of interest.
You do not have to persuade me. This was one of the strong things that I spoke about when we made those longer districts, and I got a lot of flack for it. I happen to agree that socioeconomic privilege should be something that we would be having included in this conversation. But it was made very clear to me that that was not something that we were supposed to be including when we established those districts. So I'm glad that we're past that and that we're moving forward in this way. So thank you.
Okay, can someone remind me of a problem with 105? Because I know there was problems, but I don't know what those were. I know Christina likes it.
There's a couple of problems. One of them is that there are some issues related to the population there. It's low on the renter versus owner occupied area, and it's only 46% renters and 53 owner occupied. But also,
Which district? I'm sorry.
where did it go? Sorry, I have that in my notes.
I see a very high District 2 and multifamily. And
Well, right, but one of the bigger, while I'm looking through my notes and trying to find it, the other thing that was very relevant here is that it's got the CSUMB student housing population in 105, and that's kind of an anomaly because they're not necessarily actually voting in this area, nor are they going to be running for office very likely, and if they're living in student housing.
Okay, so on 105, I don't see the CSUMB. Is that in District 3?
Hold on, let me get the map. What group is that one in again?
Mr. Mayor and
Five.
Council, is it helpful to visually see these maps? I don't want to make people dizzy by flipping through them constantly. But
Yeah, I think when we're talking about a map, to have it on display would help the public, because we all have copies in front of us and the public probably doesn't. So let's bring up 105. And my question was, what are the drawbacks to it? And Lisa mentioned it doesn't have a high renters, but it has an 89% with 57.
Right, but that's because of the anomaly, because of the CSUMB component, which includes the student housing.
Okay, and where is that on this map? Can you bring up 105, please, Matt?
So 105 is selected on our interactive map here. So the CSUMB housing is down here. Can you see my cursor?
Yes, so it has the North Quad. Oh, that's why District 2 is non-intuitively so high because it's got North Quad, those dorms.
Another thing, Mr. Mayor, you have the South County Housing.
Yeah, University Village Apartments, that's 108 units.
Yeah.
So it gets back to something that Jeff told us, our consultant, that this is based on population and not necessarily registered voters. So like Lisa said, the number of registered voters in North Quad on CSUMB housing dormitories are very low. And like she said, most students aren't going to run for city council, but eventually, once in a while they will. I looked at the master plan for the environmental impact report for CSUMB, and they're going to add a ton more student housing in Marina. So this North Quad that's in Marina that has a lot of dormitory students is going to be, there's going to be 4 or 5 more North Quads. So District 2 is going to significantly increase in the rentals, but it's not going to be, even in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years, maybe. So that point that Lisa makes is only going to become more prominent with student dorms, increasing the rental and multifamily of District 2, even though a lot of those might not register to vote if it continues past trends. Okay, so Lisa, that's what you didn't like about it. Was low on renters, except for District 2, which you see as an anomaly. And then you had another point that was a drawback to 105. I didn't write.
Wait, let me go back to my notes. Hold on. I think that was my biggest issue with 105. 1 second.
So 105 doesn't do great with renters, but it does good with Abrams and Preston by separating them with older Marina that's a little bit more in the economic stratum as Preston Park is. So yeah, it's giving up on the idea of a strong rental district. Okay, Christina Medina Dirksen, go ahead.
I was trying to find the figure, and is it in here somewhere? What is our benchmark for renters the housing stats as compared to what the census tells us? Because we have these numbers. I'd like to know what the census number tells us. So as the benchmark, here's what the census says, and here's what here's what our stats say. Because, I think I looked it up in the beginning and I had that going, but I don't remember.
I think it's about 63% of the city's residents or households are rental households. So I think our standard would let's try to get above 63% and give renters more of a chance if that was a value that we thought was important. And that's a value I think is important, but I'm willing to give up on that.
Well, what about not just renters? What about homeowners? I guess maybe Matt, can somebody pull up just the census figures so we're mirroring? Are we?
Sure.
How do I say? I'd like to. I'm not making myself clear. I want to see what we're mirroring. Are we mirroring what the census is telling us, or are we going with anecdotal information? That's what I'm thinking. That's my point here.
Okay. This is map 105 I'm pulling up. And if we look at the totals, it tells us so housing stats renter in the city for all 4 districts would be 57%, and homeowner occupied would be 43%.
Is this the statistics that are current with the census? I'm not talking map specific. I'd like to know overall our city census numbers.
If you look at the footnotes on the bottom of every table, it explains other demographics come from the American Community Survey and special tabulation data over a 5-year period. And that was during 2015 to 2019.
So Jeff and Matt, I thought that the total column, that is the rightmost column, was our census numbers.
Again, those come from the American Community Survey, which annually essentially performs a smaller version of the census to get more data, so you can create excuse me, opportunities like this. That's why you also have voting data that we get from the statewide database, voter turnout, registration, etc. It's just additional information for you to have as you're going through this process.
All right, so Jeff, I thought the census pegged Marina at 63% renters, but I see 57% in their housing stats at the bottom left.
Right.
And that must be because it's coming from a different source.
It's coming from the American Community Survey. And those data were tabulated between 2015 and 2019.
And then when was the census data tabulated?
2020.
Isn't the American survey done by the US Census?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's just a smaller version, and it gets
So-
more in-depth information.
Jeff, can you take a step back for a second? Which data on this table came from the 2020 census versus is pulled from the community survey? This is the 2020 census, right? Yes.
I'm sorry, correct. Yeah.
What about the rest of this data?
And then, so you're going to get the first 3 sections are going to come from the census: total population and citizen voting age population, along with the total. And then the rest come from the other sources of information: statewide database, Department of Justice, American Community Survey.
So Jeff, if the census done in 2020 says 63% of Marina households are renting households, and the community survey that we have in this says 57%, which one is likely to be more accurate?
I would go with the American Community Survey. The couple of things are in play here. You have to remember that the census numbers, or the national census numbers, could be different than the California prisoner adjusted census data number. Also, with student housing, all that could really throw things off with respect to your housing demographic.
For those reasons, you like the American Community Survey better than the census data in that regard of rental percentage?
Correct.
Okay, then I would say that 57 and 63% are the two sort of scientific estimates of rentals, and that if we're going to do renter households a favor, we would try to have a district that was significantly more than that if possible. But Christina, I appreciate you thinking about that and trying to ask, what are we trying to do here?
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to figure. Because I'm looking at map 105. I mean, the numbers aren't so far off. I know that we're not going to have a perfect map, but I also, I'm going to speak up for homeowners as well. Renters are bread and butter in our community, but so are the property owners who pay our property taxes. So I want to be as fair as everybody as I possibly can, recognizing that renters are, the economics of our community. Homeownership is more elusive now than it was when I arrived, 22 years ago. I understand that, but I also would like to not want to make that the focus of my number one community of interest. It's a consideration for me. I'm not anti-rent at all. I rented most of my life. But I feel like there's other overriding characterizations for me, which is our business district, touching our business district, and walkability in schools. So some of the matrix that I had, when I went through and looked over some of them, I was walking through my mind the matrix that we have. It touches this, and some of that had the lower scores for me. Maybe I don't know my community as well as I thought I did, but I found like maybe another extra point or two in, I think it was 101. But anyway, I digress. I just want to make a point that there's not going to be a perfect map here. I worry that we've got to just look at the whole picture, as well as better defining. I don't think we're going to be in agreement who our communities of interest are. That's why I asked that question. And I also want to make a point really quickly is that Moira, what's her last name?
Mountain.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Audra Walton spoke and asked the question, and it wasn't answered about could we pull the plug and choose another demographer? It wasn't answered. I'm just letting you know. I know the answer to that one, but that's on the record. So I also think we just have to be real careful, and we are being very careful, but balancing the statistics, it's as if a number like the clarification I just got. I think I was kind of misleading myself and trying to better understand the statistics. So that's all. Thank
Christina,
you.
I have you down as liking 105 and 104. Is that correct? And are there others that you like?
104 is good. I liked 104, but it does keep the concerns of Council Member Biala of keeping Abrams and Preston with the dunes and Sea Haven. But again, I am also looking at it from a different perspective of looking at what the map looks like, what future growth is looking like, and also to the point of electing a person or encouraging engagement. I don't know. I'm not sure what to draw a conclusion, just because other than the most recent race, I don't know of races that have to raise a whole lot of money to win.
So Christina, I have you down for 104 and 105. Do you like those, and do you like any others?
I think I had said on 101 I liked. It has a strong renter district, but the boundaries are intact for me. I like the boundaries. They're pretty clean, fewer funky pockets, but it does not have the that's one that Councilmember Biala had pointed out, that one of the districts, I'm sorry, Council Biala wasn't supportive of. But I'm looking for consensus here. So
those three you like: 101, 105, 104?
Yeah, I had 109 and 503 as well. I think those were on the record. Yeah, 109 has only 4 points according to Biala, the council member Biala. But again, if you look at what I'm looking at, it's the very clean lines, touching on downtown.
What's the other one besides 109?
109, 109, 503, 104, 105, and 101. Let me make sure I don't have any more hidden here.
There's 5 there: 101, 104, 105, 109, and 503. You like those 5?
Yes, 101, 104, 5, 109, and 503.
Okay. And Councilmember Berkeley, which ones did you like anything besides 208?
I like 109, and I think I liked 111. Let me jump to it again. 1 second. Yes, I like 111. And also 113 I liked.
Okay. So 109, 111, 113.
Actually, sorry, it wasn't 113. I'm sorry. It was 201.
109, 111, 201, and 208.
Yes.
Okay. And Kathy, which ones did you like? I got 505, 507, 508. Did you like
No,
others? besides-
507, 508, and I could go with 105.
How about 505?
505.
Thought you said you liked that one. That could be-
505. And no, because it was splitting up, Preston, and
Okay. No 505. So 105, 507, 508. So, okay, let's hear from Mayor Pro Tem Kathy Briola.
oh, okay. Let's see, for Councilmember Medina Dirksen on her issues with, let me go back to 105. And looking at, the rental, which is in District 2, it's 89%, so it's very high. And she was concerned about the homeowners. And I think what we have to do in these cases is to see that in this same map, it's low in District 2, but it has 54% in District 3. So when we look at these things, we got to kind of say, okay, if homeowners are concerned to me, then at least somewhere in all these districts, we've got to have, a representation of homeowners. Unless we try to get it balanced and pretty clear across the board, which then we don't have any special districts that have either renters or homeowners. And so that's the way I look at this. I look at the spread. Because in District 2, it's a paltry 11% for homeowners, but you have to go to another district to find that, gee, there's 54% represented in 3. But in that district, there's a lower rental. So that's how I'm trying to synthesize all this information. It's just pretty complicated. But Matt, could you put up 508? So in 508, what I liked is that the purple district has 71% rentals, which is, I think, what the mayor was trying to get to is there a district in which there is a high renter population? And that seems to fit for me. I think the thing that is a little askew for me on here is that that purple goes across Del Monte. So it's splitting up that sort of community of interest that I would have thought is all of Del Monte, west of Del Monte. But in truth, that area has some very nice homes and higher socioeconomic level folks with some very humble apartments too. So it's a real mix of different groups, community of interest groups, even though geographically it seems like that whole place should be, stick together. So that was at first an issue when I looked visually at this map, but then I thought, off of Palm and I forgot the name of that street there, the Lake Court, there's a lot of renters there. And so it sort of hangs together now, if I think of it in those terms. The blue so that's 71% renters. And then District 2 has 48%, and that's the blue. And then District 3 is the green, and that one has 59%. And District 1 is the pink, it has 48%. So it just seemed to me that this one keeps Abrams and Preston together, separated from the dunes and Sea Haven, and then it has this very high central district of rentals. So I was thinking that this one looked pretty good to me. And originally I was very favoring 105, and then I've sort of since, changed. But if other people like 105, that would be more acceptable, I suppose, than some of the other configurations. Are there comments about this map?
Kathy, do you see it as important or not important that 508, map 508 that you were just talking about, it splits Sea Haven in two?
Well, I think that, again, I have to go back to those census blocks, but there was an issue with that we didn't have a choice. So you either build on it or you just have this kind of funky thing going in. I think also that we're going to eventually have more houses in the Sea Haven, and that's going to be incorporated in District 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Mr. Mayor, if I could kind of help Councilmember Biala's point there, that there's hopefully you can see my cursor, but there's a census block that basically gets all of this area and then wraps around and comes over here through this real narrow channel.
Yes.
So that's really what creates this over here. Is if you want Preston Park to be with Abrams, you have to select that area right now. We could ask Jeff to help us out with this, but I believe prior to the next census, we can actually try and influence this, and we can try and get this census block to be broken up so that the Sea Havens portion of this then would eventually be separated out in 10 years down the road.
Yeah, it's going to be also predicated on the population and the census blocks too. You might have a layer, Matt, on that for census blocks that might give more visual as to what you're talking about. Probably down toward the bottom.
Council? No.
So Matt, you mentioned that the census block results in
Yeah,
some
it's
maps.
basically
Go ahead.
all of this area, and see it comes over into here is one census block.
Right, so there are many maps that keep Preston and Abrams together, but combine them with Sea Haven so that Sea Haven is not split in two. And then there are some maps that combine Preston and Abrams with Central Marina, but split Sea Haven in two. And so I was asking Kathy, Mayor Pro Tem, if that was important or not to her, that Sea Haven would be split into two.
My answer to that is, of course, I would like to have them together. It's a matter of priority. If I can't get the Preston Abrams to hang together, and at the sacrifice of splitting Sea Haven, that would be important to me. Ideally, I would not like to see Sea Haven split. I mean, it's kind of a loaded question because it's not the ideal for me by any means.
It gives Sea Haven more power because they could get two representatives in their neighborhood on city council, but it also gives Preston Park more power than they have now because there's more affluent households in Preston Park and Abrams Park District if they're combined with a portion of Central Marina, historic Marina.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think anyone loses when you split Sea Haven, except if it frustrates Sea Haven residents, if their next door neighbor or their cross street neighbors in a different voting district. And they say, well, that doesn't make any sense. You live right across the street from me. We're in the same neighborhood. Well, that's how council did it. Why'd they do that? But actually, is it true that it gives them more power at Sea Haven, not less, by giving them a chance to represent two districts?
Can I speak to that, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, yeah.
at the sake of hitting a sensitive place, we really have had conversations about when we have two representatives from one district or of a separate community of uh, people living in the same community, or sorry, two representatives representing a specific community or specific district. And really what we continued to come back to is that because we are such a small city, that our voting and the way that we work together as a council is really for all of Marina. And that even if you have two representatives from the same district or a same neighborhood, that our role and our responsibility is to be speaking and looking out for everything we do as a council, because we don't really do our city agendas are not specifically about one district over another district. So I don't think that needs to be as much as of a concern, because certainly we've engaged in this kind of conversation historically, and this is what we came up with. So I think it's okay is what I'm getting at.
To have a map that has Sea Haven in two districts.
Yeah, I think so.
And that's what Kathy thought that would, not preferable, but not a fatal flaw. Okay, let's go to either Lisa or Christina. Who wants to speak the most? Christina.
I want to speak the least. Oh, the least here. No, I want to point out that we've had had a representation from the same district. Mr. Burnett lives in my district right now. So we'll have had two people in the same district as it is. So has that done us any good or bad? I really don't know. Maybe it's just subjective, but I also know that I don't know if there's anybody from Sea Haven on this phone call. I reached out and tried to get them, but I really would have liked some of our new residents to weigh in on this, because I can just hear the criticism that why did you split us up? So I would just be as cautious as possible to keep some of those communities together, because we're going to have a lot of explaining to do. And also note that, like I said, we've had representation already from two districts for the last year and a half. The other thing that also strikes me is that, yes, Marina is, we are all one, but this idea of districts really has me concerned about how do I say this? The roads that I'm driving more. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm all over town, but I mean, I know I drive my neighborhoods and or walk my neighborhoods so much more. And I'm invested in what my neighbors are talking about or what's going on at the park. Whereas, if we go away from, a model of, I think of it as like kind of sort of community, attention, block captains. That's how I see what we're doing with these maps, or should be doing with our representation. Yes, we listen to everybody, and I'm not going to point to say, oh, go talk to somebody else because that's not my district. Of course not. But I also have a special affinity for the people who I run into on the regular in my neighborhoods. What's going on? There's a pothole here. There's a tree that's down here, or there's a speeding issue, or there's catalytic converters, however you pronounce it, thefts. I'm hearing about it from my neighbors. So I'm not necessarily going to hear about it if you live on Vaughn, Mr. Mayor, unless the mayor tells me. So there is something a little provincial about having our districts that I appreciate. I greatly appreciate. And I want to keep that in mind as we move this conversation forward, of who we're representing, or who us and future leaders will be representing, and what's that going to look like. That's all.
Could I ask a question of Councilmember Medina Dirksen about
Yeah.
this map? Oh, it disappeared already. I thought we were looking up at 508 again. In order for me to understand your sense of walkability, does this fit that or no? I just need to understand from some of the maps. It could be any map, but you talked about walkability.
Yeah, so let's take a look at this one. Okay, this is 508. I have it in front of me, right? There's a separation between where Windy Hill Park is. It's going to go all the way from Windy Hill Park, and there's a school over here, by the way. One school all the way across to Bostrom and Abrams and Imgen Road. That's maybe you can fly a drone there, but I know Mr. Les Martin had walked it, and it was like a good, what did he say, a good 5 hours or something? I don't know what his pace was, but it's pretty far. You can walk it, of course, but that's like I'm not a fan of that. So it cuts off. There's Windy Hill Park, there's Monterey Bay Estates, down to Crescent and Tallman. This all backs up into the back end of the airport, which is the open space. And then it has the business community going down Reservation, which is great. And then it has, the back end of town, which I'll call the Salinas Road sort of border, heading out of town. And then, I'm sorry, out of the proper, I shouldn't say out of town, but that's, where sort of our edge. And then we have the open space that leads across from the airport all the way down Imgen into these neighborhoods. So this is what the problem I had with it how it currently is configured, because I live over by Windy Hill Park. In that general neighborhood, and being a spokesperson for my constituents out in that neighborhood, I'm just honestly not out there as often as I was walking my dog and, taking the kids to the park out there as often as I possibly could. And we do sports out there, but it's just not part of my regular.
Could you show me a map where you feel like it does have that walkability, and not just for your area, because that would be something we'd have to look at for all districts, but could you choose another one and tell me like how you view walkability in another map?
Sure, let's take a look at 105. That's a good example of good walkability. We got 105 coming up. Is that the one? 105. I think we all sort of had, was it 105? We all tended to like. So if we take a look at the pockets here. All right, if you're going to get off the freeway or walk, you're living down by the freeway, Abdi and Drew, all of those are sort of, you can walk. I can see myself, Lake Drive, you're going to go to the library, any of those, any of those communities, you can walk, and they surround Lock Padden Park. Coming up on the purple one, DeForest, that is DeForest and Reservation. It all touches downtown. I could walk to, and we could walk anywhere in the downtown district. Over DeForest to Carmel, I know some of the high schools are that way, and I do see kids coming home walking that stretch. So the walkability there is much easier. And then we get into the blue, which is maybe, let's see, the Sea Haven, the Inner Garrison Road, the Hayes Circle, again, high school neighborhoods. They just seem a lot more compact to me. There's a funky little finger that goes into Abrams a little bit. And then if we look, which one am I missing? The red, the purple, the green is all, it appears to be a little more compact.
Green is pretty much the same as 508, except a little green part kind of going into the.
So 508 has the Monterey Bay Estates in the same neighborhoods as the Monterey Bay Estates, being off of Crescent and sandwiched between DeForest and Crescent on the side closest to, what is that, the north. So it has some pockets there that has the Tallman Street, and it has those areas which would be in with the Sea Haven. That's pretty far. So map 105 has open space in the green. Are we on 105? 105. Oh, we were in 508, but now 105, if you say they look similar, there's a lot more open space in the third district.
I can put the two on top of each other, but it gets a little murky. So here's 105 is being shown, and here's 508 on top of it.
I can't tell.
I know. I guess this comes down, the District 1 comes down into this area, it looks like. Through here.
That's very difficult, especially me being colorblind. Matt, can you show Matt show the maps that are in our packet for the two that we're talking about right now?
Yeah. So,
but if I can make a quick little comment, I was looking at both the online and my hard copy. So if 508 it's clearly delineated on my hard copy that there's more Monterey Bay Estate housing, like the Tallman Streets, but what you're showing me online doesn't show that.
But the issue here is that 105 feels more walkable to you. Is that, can I say that?
That is correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, all right, thank you. That's kind of,
Before we move on, so
Yeah.
105 is more walkable. And Christina, you don't like 508 in that it splits up Monterey Bay Estates.
That is correct. And I can take a look on my hard copy and it showed that, but when Matt did the overlay, I really couldn't tell that. And when I say that, take a look at like the Serena Del Mar, the Quebrada
Yes.
Del
Oh,
Mar.
it's totally true.
There's
So,
that
The
crescent. I
point I'd
think
like
that's
to
a
make is
crescent.
that
Go ahead.
508 was my favorite coming into tonight. Now I realize, thanks to Peter, we split Sea Haven, and thanks to Christina, I realized we split Monterey Bay Estates. So my favorite map coming in tonight splits up two neighborhoods into two districts, and those two neighborhoods are really going to scratch their head. And my answer to them would be, it was to benefit basically an overall lower income community called Preston Park and Abrams Park. And yeah, so anyway, let's go to Kathy. You had your hand up, Kathy?
no, it was for the walkability issue, so I can understand it more.
All right, so there is map 109 that Lisa and Christina like, and I could go with that. There is map 105 that Christina and Kathy like, that I could go with that. Does anyone else see a map that's likely to get at least three of us to say yes to? Because those would be good candidates for further discussion. So again, I had Lisa at 201, 208, 109, and 111. And I had Christina at 105, I'm sorry, 101, 104, 105, 109, and 503. And then I had Kathy at 105, 507, and 508. So with given those three sets, 105 and 109 has two of you. And I would be happy with either one. But where would you like to go from here as far as comments, questions, et cetera?
Mr. Mayor, can I add one more piece of information we've been looking at that I didn't get
Sure.
to explain yet? So we've also got a layer within this map here that is existing city council district boundaries. So another thing that's going to happen tonight, based on the map you choose, is people are going to shift from one district to another. So what this shows you here is the blue lines are the existing district boundaries, and then these colors that I'm overlaying are the new districts. So if you had somebody who is in, say, district, I guess 4 last time, and they're going to shift over to district, I think of a real example here, I guess right here, if there were voters, they were going to shift over to district 3, those people would not get to vote again this time.
Can you circle with your cursor
Yeah.
the area where the people would be double no votes?
Yeah. So
The
these
Reservation Road apartments.
actually, yeah. So these people did not get to vote last time because they're in District 4. So this time, District 4 is up for election this November. So when you move these people out of District 4 and back into District 3, they don't get to vote again this time.
With
I want-
109. This is map 109. So that
Did you-
Reservation Road corridor.
Giving you an example. Yeah,
Okay. And then can you go to 105?
sure.
So can you circle the area that would be a double no vote?
I believe so. These people that are currently in District 1 would shift over to District 3 right here.
Okay.
Um,
That's the Cardosa neighborhood.
And then it looks like down here we've got a District 2, which would have voted Well, these people last time were in District 1. They would now be in District 2, so they would not get to vote again.
That's the City Hall area, I believe,
Yeah,
or maybe north of there. Can you, what area of city is that?
that is, yeah, City Hall block
Okay.
between Palm and Cypress. But there's also going to be examples where people get to vote again. And that would be, I would say here, this block looks like it was in District 2 currently, and they would shift over to District 4. So they would have to get, they got to vote at the last election and they get to vote again this election.
Can we see 208? Oh, was it, or no, wait, what were we looking at before? 508 or 208 a few minutes ago? 208.
508, 508.
And which
So-
would be, yeah, go ahead.
Matt, can you circle the ones, is it Reservation Road that would have no vote again?
So yeah, the current district looks like it's, so District 2 is all of this area down here. So these
Currently, that's 3, right?
3, yeah, I think 3.
Currently, to look back at it is,
That's
yeah, you're
Christina's
right,
district.
District 3, yeah, you're right. Okay, so these people, let's see, they got to vote last time. District 4, they'll get to go vote again. So everybody down here will get to vote again.
Wait, who lives there? That looks like a bunch of trees. Oh, that's Salinas Avenue?
Yeah, and Preston Park and Abrams Park.
They would get to vote again because they would be in what district? 4. Right.
They would be in the new District 4, yeah.
Right.
They
Okay.
were in 3 last time.
And who's a non-voter twice in a row with 508?
508.
To me, that's more important than who gets to vote twice, is taking
Yeah.
away someone's vote.
So see, currently, let's see, as District 2, these people will stay in District 2, so it won't affect them, but the people who are currently in District 4 up here, let's see, they did not get to vote last time and they won't get to vote this time because they'll be in District 2 now. So
Can you
this whole
circle
area.
that area? All right, that looks like California, west toward the beach, all the way over to Vaughn Avenue.
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to look at the areas, but also how many people is that? I mean, you could have a big area and you go, oh my gosh, but on the other hand, it could be a small area with a lot of people. So how do we get to know that in terms of how many people are we talking about? Not just the geographical area?
Well, you can see on that example, if Matt would circle that again on 508, that's dense housing.
That's dense.
Those are mobile homes. That's just highly residential. Can you zoom in on that? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's basically the Marina Vista learning community.
Okay, and so these folks would not be voting in the next round, and they hadn't voted last time either.
Yeah, can you circle it again, Matt? My color blindness really makes this
Sure.
difficult for me.
It's basically everything north of this dotted line here
Which is
is
rain
now
dollar.
blue.
Yeah.
There's now this blue, light blue.
Okay. That's probably the biggest double no vote that you've shown us in the 3 maps or so that you've focused. That's a pretty big double no vote, and that's 508.
Okay, how about 105? Did we do 105?
Well, let's do it again, just so it's clear. The comparison between 105 and 10 and 508.
And isn't that area of the change mostly businesses along Reservation that would be changing on this map?
Yeah, except for up here.
Yeah, there's some apartments and some single families, but you're right. It's a lot fewer double no voters in 105 than 508. Can you circle it while you're there, Matt? The ones that are going to be a double no voter.
These guys
Oh.
down here,
Okay, that's solid residential.
Patton and Rain Dollar, and then this block between Palm and Cypress.
Oh, okay. Well, that's roughly equal to what we just saw in 508. There's both 508 and 105 are going to have significant double no votes. And then what was the one we looked at previous?
109.
Let's go to 109. Looked like it was just the reservation commercial apartment corridor and a little bit of Crescent and Talmon.
So let's see, 4.
This is really difficult for me, and I don't think it's just because of my color blindness.
It's tough.
It's like having a GIS system in your brain.
I think it's going to be this large. Well, so it's District 1. Looks like this section here will all get, because this is all District 1 currently.
That's
This whole
Susan
area.
Avenue. You pointed at that one right there. So can you circle the area of double no votes?
Sure, this area.
It looks like east of, I'm sorry, west of Melanie
Yeah, so it's Susan
and west of
Avenue,
Michael.
and Del Monte and Michael,
Yeah, east
lower
of the
part of Beach Road. That's pretty significant. So all three of those maps had about equal no voters twice in a row. So when you got the equality between those three, it's not like we can really
And avoid anything, yeah.
across the board, more or less. But Kathy's right. It'd be nice to know the exact numbers, but we can see they're in the ballpark. I thought there was one that was just the reservation corridor, which included commercial and some apartments and a little bit of Crescent. But that must have been a fourth map. Okay, so 109, 105, and 508 are similar, close and approximate in how many people are excluded from voting twice in a row. So I don't know how else to do this, except to acknowledge that we do have two maps that have two council members and that I'm comfortable with, which would make 3 out of the 4. And that is 105 and 109. And I would be happy to join Kathy on 508, but Kathy, I think there would just be 2 of us. But go ahead, Kathy, your hand's up.
I just want to ask you, because you're the one who really wanted the rental district. Are you okay on 105 having 89% rental that includes Sea Haven and Dunes? Is that
105?
on 105? That
Yeah,
it's-
so if we were to go with 105, which I'd be willing to do, I give up on my strong drive to try to get a renter's district. And people will say, yeah, but you do have 89% and 57% multifamily in District 2. But I think that's the anomaly that Lisa pointed out. There are some good low income neighborhoods that are real, like the University Village Apartments and the VTC, but they're small and they're lumped in with the rest of the dunes. So it's kind of like a Preston Park issue. So anyway, yes, I would give up on having a strong central marina multifamily renters district to go with 105, because I think in all other aspects, 105 is very good. And it does have a strong rental district. I'm just not sure what that means. So I guess the answer to the question is yes, I'm willing to give on the renters district, because the renters districts I really liked, they split Sea Haven into 2 neighborhoods, and one of them split the Monterey Bay Estates into 2 neighborhoods. I think that was 508, which was my favorite. So that's hard. That's a hard sell to split those 2 neighborhoods, Sea Haven and Monterey Bay Estates, into 2 districts each.
Okay, and just can we go back to 109? Because this one I really do not like, because it almost feels like we're doing what our current district is, in that we combine Abrams and Preston Park and combined it really very staunchly with the Dunes and Sea Haven. So I just could not approve this one. It just would not fit with my basic principles. And 105 would, it's not my first choice, obviously, but you know, I'm leaning towards this one as a, you know, as something I could live with. And it seems like, you know, with Christina's comments about walkability, I understand that and it seems to fit. And the other ones that I liked did not fit that. So I could see myself going with 105.
Okay, so 3 of us would go with 105 and 3 of us would go with 109. And the reason I would be willing to go with 109, even though it continues to lump Preston and Abrams parks with Sea Haven and the Dunes, is primarily because Paula Pillow, who's been the representative of the Tenants Association, knows that area, you know, probably better than anybody, disagreed with Audra Walton and said that she'd be okay with it. Not ideal, but she'd be okay with it. So, and I think other council people thought that that's not a fatal flaw. Even though I kind of, go ahead, sorry, Christina.
Can we bring it up 109?
Can you
So
bring up the
the numbers.
the other map?
Are you?
No, I guess you can leave whatever one Christina wants because I have the other one in my hand.
109, let's bring it up a little closer to see the boundaries if we could.
How's that?
Now at this point, Matt, or sequencing, do we care about the sequencing at this point, or you adopt it first and then you worry about the sequencing? Sequencing, by the way, to people attending, meaning your numbers, what the district numbers are.
Yeah, so 1 and 4 on this map would be on the ballot this year.
Yeah,
Which is what colors? Which is what colors?
4 is purple.
4 is purple.
And red is 1.
Oh. Okay. I could live with this one. It keeps my walkability. Everybody touches the downtown corridor.
Yeah, well, that's one that was on your list. That was one that
Yeah.
you suggested earlier.
Um,
And I could live with it.
the lines are
and
pretty
Marissa
cute.
can.
The
Yeah,
lines are pretty nice. I think I have a noted that it only got 4 points on Kathy's assessment when we compared it. But I'm not 100% sure on those numbers because again, some open space and some other considerations I didn't find that to be completely accurate. Can we pull out a little bit from the optics of it as well? It looks very clean to me, to my eye. There's just a little pocket.
Yeah.
Actually, it looks very clean to me.
It looks clean, but then we've just done something that 3 speakers really didn't want us to do. That is to combine Abrams and Preston with the Dunes and Sea Haven. I mean, you know, that's why I really feel strong. It looks clean, it looks neat, nice, you know, and I grant you that, but we've done something that perpetuates what we just had this past go around. So
Okay. Now, so I agree. It does a disservice to Preston and Abrams that Paula thought would be okay, but that Brian and Audra and maybe somebody else didn't like. It does have a renter's benefit in that it has 2 high rent districts. Districts 1 and District 2 are both above 70% rentals. And District 1, which is Central Marina, has a 71% multifamily. So district from map 109 is pretty good. It may be one of the best ones we have for rental districts because it has 2 high rental districts. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, well, I was going to add to that in 105, right, that it's got Preston and Abrams with transitional housing in a district that's got lower rent ratio than the city average. So that's more of a disadvantage. So I think that's something to consider as well. Whereas
Lisa, just let me interrupt just for a second. It has 89% rentals in in District 2, you said that it had lower than the city. So it's true in all districts except for District 2 because of the 89% anomaly.
Well, but so in what, wait, no, you're talking about 109, right?
No, I thought you were talking about 105.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, correct. 105, it has Preston and Abrams on transitional housing in the district that has a lower rent ratio than the city average. And so that's not going to disadvantage Preston Abrams. The other one will.
Oh,
So,
so
109 is actually a good map. It does good by Preston Abrams.
so 105 has Preston Park in
With
District,
transitional housing. And in that district, it has a lower renter ratio than the entire city average.
much lower. Yeah.
Right. And so that does create a disadvantage. Whereas 109 doesn't have that.
Okay. All right, let's have comments on that or anything else by first Christina and then Kathy.
Kathy, you can go first.
I think that if I look at 105 and 109, so the District 2 on both of these have pretty much 89% rentals. District 3 has 44% on 109 and 46% on rentals, which is why I asked the mayor about, is that in map 105 not is it bothersome to him about the rentals? And he said, no, not.
Yeah. So I would especially say that 109 doesn't bother me that because it has two high rental districts. So to me, 109 is one of the best maps we have for renters and for multifamily.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Maybe we should open this up to the public and say, so because my understanding is at this point, we're down to between 105 and 109 for our maps. And so maybe we want to invite the public to weigh in.
That's good.
Okay. Now earlier, Brian asked that we go to the public after a motion. So we don't want to go to the public 3 times, right?
So I'll make a motion.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution, that we adopt map number 109 to lay the foundation for our districts or to become our districts.
That would be to adopt the ordinance.
Thank you. Yes, I was, okay.
Ordinance, yes. We'd
Yes,
be introducing the ordinance and have the ordinance read by title only tonight and waive further reading.
that is correct. Per what
Okay.
is written. Yes,
So I interpret Lisa's motion as doing those 3 actions that are requested by staff in the staff report with the specific of selecting map 109.
correct. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion. And so we can go to public comment.
Great.
But first, let's hear from Christina Medina Brooksley.
I should probably just to put a procedural input into it, I should probably read the ordinance by title only, which is what we've agreed to do. And that would be an ordinance of the city of Marina adopting new council district boundaries for 4 council districts pursuant to California Election Code 21621 through 21629 and California Government Code 34871C and 34886. That's the title of the ordinance now read.
And that is my motion. Second, Mr. Mayor, does the second still hold?
Yeah, so let's go to Christina, because you had a hand up, and then we'll go to Kathy.
Hold on. There we go. I think this is a very difficult process. I can support 109. I guess that's all I'll say.
Okay, let's go to Mayor Pro Tem Kathy Biala.
Can I make a substitute motion right now?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I would do exactly the same thing except for 105.
Okay.
And
And I'm happy to second that. And then go
yeah,
ahead, Kathy.
yeah, I just want both maps to get consideration as opposed to voting for one and then it now dismisses any possibility for the other.
So at least we're down to 2 maps, and we'll go to Lisa, and then we'll go to public comment.
Oh, sorry, my hand was from before. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's go to public comment. The motions are, one motion is for map 105 and one motion is for map 109. Okay, Tommy Bolea. Oops. We'll try to get Tommy on here. Go ahead, Tommy.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Good evening.
Oh, good evening. No, I didn't raise my hand. I was just listening. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
All right, let's go to Denise Turley.
Oh, same as Tommy. I'm listening just to see what's going on.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Let's go to Les Martin.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Les, good evening.
Hi, great discussion tonight. You guys really did your homework on this. Much more detail than I could looking into it. I like the 109 map. Great job on this. Thank you. That's all I got to say.
Okay, one vote in favor of 109. Thanks, Les. Let's go to Brian McCarthy.
Thank you. Agree with Les. Great discussion. I'm really impressed with the level of interaction that I've seen tonight, and the level of questions that have been asked. That very, very much the questions that I wanted to see answered. So thank you for that. I think that both 105 and 109 are good maps. I do want to say that I actually, and this is the first time I'm saying this, but I think 508 that I know Bruce and Kathy mentioned early on is a great map as well. So I'm glad to see a series of good maps that were considered. I'd have a slight leaning towards 109, I think. Obviously, very important that you would keep the sequencing the same in order to ensure that you're not disenfranchising large groups of people. But yeah, I think 109 is a good map. I'm still a little apprehensive about merging Preston and Abrams with the Dunes and Sea Haven. And I do think the renter number is very biased in the data because, again, the promontory student housing that we know is not, at this point anyway, super involved with the city and likely are not voters. In fact, I had one person who studies the voter rolls tell me there's not a single voter in the promontory housing. I don't know if that's true or not. But long story short, thanks for the great discussion. And I could easily support 109 and think that that's a good map. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I think it's untrue. I think there are many registered voters at 401 8th Street. I don't know how many of them actually vote, but that address comes up a lot. And you can't, it's not easy to get in there and canvass, but there's quite a few on the rolls, on the voter rolls there at the promontory for 401 8th Street. Okay, so Brian was leaning toward 109. And now let's go to Karen Anderson. Hello, Karen.
Good evening, everybody. It's been great to watch this. And I just wanted to add a point of information is that at the top of Carmel, heading out of Central Marina and toward Preston Abrams, is going to be a large pocket of Sea Haven homes before too long. So carving away Sea Haven from Preston Abrams is just not going to be that realistic in the long run. And I think I favor 109 over 105. And 105 is also showing on the south side of, well, it's really Central Marina, the old line, but it's not a street really. Oh, maybe it is the street that goes into the high school when it's going to the west, but when it's going to the east, it's not a street. But there's that neighborhood that's Sea Haven there too. So it's pretty awkward to try to separate Sea Haven. I just wanted to say that. announcement. And I do think I like 109 better. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, let's go to Paula Pillow. Hello, Paula, welcome back.
Hi, Bruce. Difficult work. And I think tonight was particularly frustrating for me as a listener because I was kind of yelling at my laptop screen the number of times that there was some, I think, misunderstandings that made this go longer. I think 109 is a superior map. It's one of the maps I identified that I would support. I think the problem that some people have is they're looking at it being combined with, they keep referencing the dunes. There's more than the dunes in what we're talking about. There's the university apartments. There is the quad. And Brian is right there, and Bruce is right. There are registered voters there, but they rarely vote in our elections. And so, but they're there, and that's going to expand. And so, you know, if you go with 105, if you're really interested in what's happening for Preston and Abrams, and by the way, there are 6 or 7 other transitional housing developments around us that are included in this map. It's not just Preston and Abrams that are also renters and also vote. 105 actually dilutes their political power, so to speak, by combining them in a district in map 105, where the percentage ratio from renters to owner-occupied homes is lower than that of Marina in general. And I know that the 89% looks really wacky, but that does have to do with the quad housing. And I think that there is, there is some more balance for Preston and Abrams and the transitional housing, the VA Center, the university apartments, when it is combined with the Dunes development and the Sea Haven development. I realize that there are socioeconomic differences. I think that they are somewhat exaggerated in this discussion because of the high level of rents that are being paid in certain units now in Preston and Abrams Park. So I'm not sure that it's as big a difference as possible. I think it's the better map for a number of reasons, and that's the one that I would support and hope that you as a council will support also. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paula. Let's go to Lisbeth Vischer. Good evening, Lisbeth.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the council for the thoroughness with which they have handled this, or are still handling this redistricting process, and for the many options that the residents have had to provide input. I don't have questions, just a few remarks. Homeowners indeed pay property tax, but so do renters indirectly, because costs and fees are included in the rent they pay. I agree that it will be good to have tenants and or low-income residents represented in City Council. I don't know how realistic it is to expect that people who work jobs from which they can't easily take time off would be able to attend the often long council meetings. A future discussion might be to see how council members could be compensated for their time and or get benefits like health insurance to provide a more level playing field for all residents. I don't think there's a way to avoid that residents won't be able to vote in 2 consecutive elections. I think that this will always be an issue if redistricting is required every 10 years after the census, while council members are elected for a period of 4 years. I trust that one of the good maps will be chosen. It's interesting to realize that it again might be a map 109, but without the C this time, which I really like. So I think they both are good maps. And again, I would just like to thank you for the way you are handling this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Let's go to Audra Walton, which might be the last word. Hello, Audra, welcome back.
Thank you so very much. This is very, very, very hard work, and I appreciate all of you. I don't envy the decision you have to make tonight, but I do appreciate you deeply for all of this work that you've put into it. It is showing up in tonight's meeting. I just want to say that with respect to 109, I I just don't like it. It does exactly what I don't want, and that's to be. I live in Preston Park. I don't know if this helps if I say it this way, but if say I were to run for office, I would have to convince the Dunes and Sea Haven to vote for me. And I don't know how much luck I would have with that. So consider that as part of this. And then I wanted to know, I prefer 105 of those that you have spoken about. And then I wanted to know about the map 509. Well, I know that it does split Sea Haven and the Dunes, and it keeps Preston Park and Abrams with Sea Haven. And it's weird, but I might be able to go for something like this because it's a little less intimidating to knock on these doors. I might share the big park over here that's going up behind us at some point with this other community where I wouldn't, like Christina was mentioning, with respect to walkability and the neighbors that you might come in contact with. And then just as my last point, I'd just like to reintroduce the need for participatory budgeting. I think, in all honesty, we could have participatory budgeting and at large, go back to at large if that was helpful. That way we have people representing the neighborhoods, all of the neighborhoods showing up to discuss the potholes and where money needs to flow to fix it, and those types of things that you guys know that I've gone in depth in talking about in recent history. So again, I appreciate all of your hard work on this. I know that I don't like NDC. I think they've been kind of rotten with the way that they've come in and didn't quite give us all the tools. So I mean, I can only imagine it's a hard job for you guys too. So I just want to thank you for it and being part of our lives during this time. So thank you again, everybody, and have a good evening. I appreciate you so very much.
All right, Audra, thank you very much, and to everyone for speaking tonight. Okay, so we'll close public comment, and Bob, did we properly close the public hearing earlier tonight? You're muted, Bob.
I believe we did close that public hearing, but we can reclose it at this point.
Okay, well, let's close the public hearing to make
Public
sure we do
hearing
it
is
properly.
closed. Thank you.
And it's good that we had a lot of people be able to speak twice. So we have two motions on the floor, but before we vote, we're going to go to the hands that are up. Let's go to Councilmember Christina Medina Dirksen first.
Thank you. I really appreciate all the comments. This is where I make a comment, right? Is it questions?
You comment or question as long as you like.
I'll go ahead with a comment really quickly. I mean, this is a massive do-over for all of us. We had to go at this under pressure the last time around, and you know, and unfortunately there was a lot of criticism. But I really appreciate the fact that this prompted us to do a deep dive into this process. I'm really proud of Matt, and I'm really proud of our staff. I'm really proud of my residents of Marina, who took the time. And I'm gonna say it kind of was a little fun, you know, with the maps. It was maddening and lots of spinning plates and, you know, a game of wits. You do this, that. There's so many considerations. But, you know, we have to go back to what the intent of this was. The intent of the California Voter Rights Act, was to enfranchise people, is to not to disenfranchise them, but to get them participating. And I think we're hitting that. We're hitting that on the mark here. The fact that we had more maps than NDC could really, we threw them a loop, and the comment was made that our 59 maps were equivalent to what an entire county would have provided. You know, Marina, be proud of ourselves, because we hit the intent of this voter of this rule that we didn't want to embrace. But quite frankly, I have full confidence that it's going to bring us to a different place. I mean, it already has. Some of us on this council were voted in as a result of no longer being at large, popularity contest, more community-based conversations around representation. So overall, I want to say that this process has very much piqued people's interest. And I'm going to go on record and saying, I mean, it wasn't that painful. It was painful, but it was a process, just like our budgeting process is a process. So the more input we get into it and we nail it down and we bring it and we whittle, you know, I think Moira's point to participatory government, this was a perfect example of having lots of hearings, lots of people talking, lots of considerations, probably too many considerations. It was pretty mind-blowing, but we did it together. So I just want to say that let's encourage the participation. The fact that there are 14 people here, last time around, there was maybe 3 people, 4 people in the room, if that, when this decision was made. So I give a really kudos to our community, everybody who participated in the process, Paula, for your thoughtful comments. And, you know, let's keep this up. So I think this is part of our legacy here is just going to be increasing public participation, and for that we should all be proud of ourselves for doing or accomplishing. Thank you. Oh, one last thing, and I wanted to say that this process has prompted me to do a deep dive. I'm going to be doing a project for my legal studies on the intent of the Voter Rights Act and how it's shaking out. So I've been following this very carefully. So I appreciate all this fodder.
Thank you, Councilmember Dirksen. Let's go to Mayor Pro Tem Viola.
Oh, we lost you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Medina Dirksen about this being a pretty amazing process. And I have to say that I have been very candid, very not predisposed. I had some favorites, and even 105 was not something that I had coming into the meeting wanted. I actually did at one point favor that map, and then now through this process, now feeling like, no, maybe there's a better solution even than that. So, and I think that for me, listening to the public is really important. I think I feel very empathetic with the comments of Audra Walton, but I also know that looking at 109, which I hadn't given a lot of consideration to, because it did compromise one of my most significant issues is having involved with Abrams and Preston Park. But I can see now that this looks very compact, and this map I think will do the trick if the public really feels that we're not disadvantaging Abrams and Preston. So I think I'm of the mind of going with map 109. And I have a procedural question for Bob. I made the motion, but can I withdraw it, or should we go through the vote and then go through the second vote, or can I withdraw the motion at this point?
You're the maker of the motion, so I believe you can withdraw it.
Okay, so I think that I will withdraw that motion, and so we just have the original one, which is
that is
for map 109.
109, correct.
Does the second also have to agree with the withdrawal of the motion, or it doesn't matter?
No.
Okay, so I will do that.
Withdrawn.
It's kind of ironic because I was starting to lean toward 105. But our only vote is to be on the motion made by Councilmember Berkeley.
Yeah. And
for map
Mr.
109.
Mayor, I would mention just before, there is a resolution in your materials tonight also. So after your approval of the introduction of the ordinance, which would designate map 109 as the exhibit to the ordinance, then it would probably be appropriate to also take up by motion the resolution, which also would designate map 109 as the selected district boundary.
Okay, so Bob, one vote could take care of that. We add it to the motion.
Actually, we should do it in two because, well, they both require roll call votes. I would suggest we do them separately. We introduce the ordinance as one separate action and adopt the resolution as a second action.
Okay.
And what we just made was what was originally item 8M or something like that.
Excuse me, one moment, Lisa. So the resolution is not mentioned in the 9A staff report, Bob.
No, but it's in the materials online with the agenda this evening.
Right, it was,
But-
oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Lisa.
Yeah, no, that's what I was, thank you. I was trying to get the clarification. In our last meeting, it was on the consent agenda, correct?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, this time it
8L or M.
but it is in the materials, and I think just to close the loop on that resolution so that 10 years later, when the council looks at that and they go, well, what did they do with that resolution? I think it would be good to deal with it this evening.
Bob, that's never happened in the history of our city. Because of you, it definitely won't happen on this occasion.
Everything's crystal clear. You're right, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the motion. We'll vote on the resolution next to approve City of Marina redistricting 2021 map 109. We have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Medina Dirksen,
Yes.
Councilmember Berkeley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Biala. Is that a yes? Mayor Delgado.
Yes. All right, so that passes unanimously. Great job, especially to Matt and to our consultants for holding us, taking us through this. And Matt, you came up with some initiative to give us some of these matrices, some of these tables, which we really relied on those scores. And you just did a great job of organizing these 57 maps and groups for us.
I would say also, Mr. Mayor, for the city attorney side, Matt did a great job, as did everybody involved. It was a lot of work.
Thanks to Lane for hiring Matt.
And I think you should also mention Tripepi Smith as far as the role they played in their outreach.
The consultants did a great job on outreach and then getting these maps together in twice, right? 2 different periods of maps. Okay, so now we're going to go to the resolution. Would someone like the motion that we approve that resolution? It's in our staff report.
Bob, could you possibly read the,
Sure, I can read the title of the resolution. Yeah.
And, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution from the February, that was on the February 15th City Council agenda as to be read by the city attorney.
And that would be a resolution of the City of Marina City Council approving the introduction of an ordinance adopting a map establishing new city council boundaries and the sequence of district elections pursuant to the California Elections Code.
And Bob, can you read the now therefore be it resolved section? Because it talks about select.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Marina does hereby select a new council district boundary map number 109 and approves the introduction of an ordinance adopting a map establishing new city council district boundaries and the sequence of district elections.
Okay, so I'll second the motion. Did we talk about the sequence that on the November ballot? Have we included in the motion that districts 1 and 4 will be on the November 2022 ballot? Or should we do that now?
Mr. Mayor and Mr. City Attorney, I think we do need to actually discuss this really quickly before you approve
Why don't
that.
you lead us? So right now we have a motion and I think it can be modified with that sequencing. Bob, is that correct?
The map can be modified regarding the numbers, yes.
No, I'm saying the motion we have on the floor is to approve the resolution. Can that motion be modified to add the sequencing of, let's say, for example, that districts 1 and 4 be on our November 2022 ballot?
They are already on the November 22 ballot.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, then we'll turn it over to Matt. Go ahead.
And actually, I'm going to ask for Jeff to chime in as well to make sure that we're speaking in the right legal terms here. So to me, there might be more than one way of skinning this. I believe there's the way that, and that's what I guess we need Jeff's guidance on as well. So let me pull up the map so you can see a little bit more clearly now what we're talking about. I think at this point it's easier if we visually see where council members live by blocks. Maybe not your address or where your specific location is, but what block you reside in and how this is going to play out then. Where to go? Council blocks. Oh yeah. So it's a little difficult to see, but if you look in here, you can see that Councilmember Bial lives in this block. Councilmember Berkeley lives in this block. Burnett lives in this block here. And then Medina Dirksen, Councilmember, lives up in this block. So with the current sequencing, it was districts 1 and 4. They're up for election this year. Councilmembers Medina Dirksen and Councilmember Biala were both just elected, so they have 2 more years in their term, and that's you know, so those terms wouldn't be reduced at all.
Correct.
The thing I'm looking at now is we've adopted a map that has Councilmember Biala, who has 2 more years, and Councilmember Berkeley, who would be up for election this time in the same district. Councilmember Biala, though, however, is currently representing District 2. So the question I guess we need a little help here, Jeff, is it appropriate that we keep our current district numbers and Councilmember Biala continues to represent District 2, or would Councilmember Biala move into District 4 at this point?
No, so what we want to do is to follow the numbers that the current council members have. So I think it was the city attorney mentioned that districts 1 and 4 have elections in 2022. Yeah, that is correct. But what needs to happen is we need to change on this particular map. We need to change District 4 to number 2. Just flip-flop those 2 numbers. So if the number follows the council member.
So I guess to clarify though, so then District 4 does not have an election this fall.
If you flip-flop those numbers, District 4 has an election in 2022. Districts 1 and 4 currently are, their terms expire in 2022.
That's correct.
Yeah.
If we flip-flop, then Kathy's in District 4. So District 2 would be on the ballot. The new District 2 would be on the ballot, not the old District 2.
We would have to change the sequencing then in the municipal code if we do that, Jeff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Easiest way is just to change the numbers on the map.
So if Kathy lives in 4 and Lisa lives in 2, who's on?
No, I
November
wouldn't live in
ballot?
2. I wouldn't live in 2. I still live in 4. I can't, but I wouldn't be able to be, my seat would not be up for election.
That's what I'm saying. So if we flip the numbers, then nobody who lives in the new District 4 would vote. And Lisa's District 2 would vote.
No.
No, District 2 would vote, but that wouldn't be me. Like I wouldn't. What?
No. What I'm trying to say is Districts 1 and 4 are up for election in 2022. Okay.
Yes.
Don't disregard the numbers on this map, if you will, briefly. The district numbers need to follow the incumbent for 2024. So Biala is currently in District 2. On this map, District 4 becomes District 2. Medina Dirksen is currently in 3. On this particular map, it's District 3. So really all you do is exchange on this map the numbers 2 and 4.
So the only districts that will be up for election this fall will be the red district and the blue district.
Correct.
Which both of them have no incumbents in them.
Correct.
Now, Councilmember Biala's term cannot be cut short though by this action.
No. If she's currently living in the purple district, which is on here designated as District 4, we flip-flop that and we make that District 2 on the map. That's all we're doing. She still finishes her term in 2024, completes the term rather. And the same would apply for Medina Dirksen. No term is cut short. It's just a matter of giving the districts a different number of those 2 districts.
And so that would mean that so even though my seat is up this year in 2022, it means, but Kathy is now, the district that I would live in is now District 2, of which Kathy is that's her district. And then Kathy comes up for re-election in 2024.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to run again, that's when I would run.
That's correct. If you decided you wanted to run again. You
Right.
still, all
So I'm
council,
now, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, all council members still represent the districts they were elected.
So Lisa, you would still represent District 4, even though you're living in District 2 until the end of, until the
Yeah,
next.
until your term ends.
Which is this year.
But what we should,
Uh-huh.
what we should do then is we should probably have a motion to reconsider the map we just adopted, because that map will be different if we switch those districts and re-adopt. What would it be? Should we redesignate the map, Jeff, or can we?
You just flip flop the numbers, and you could say that in your language that District 4 becomes District 2, and District 2 becomes District 4.
Okay.
And leave the designation as map 109.
Yes.
Okay,
Stay
where
away
I'm
from any letters after map 109.
We don't
Okay.
need any letters. Okay,
We
good.
don't want letters.
Good. We don't want that.
So
Okay.
where I'm confused is, I think you're saying that with map 109, Preston Park, Abrams, Sea Haven, and the Dunes, etc., they will vote again this year. But Central Marina, who didn't vote last time,
Oh,
will not be voting again this time in District 4, in the old District 4.
That would be correct. That's correct. I believe.
That's huge. And we did not know that. At least I did not know that, because we were going over maps 109 and we were not told that that vast expanse of what's labeled number 4 on map 109 would end up not voting this year. And that most of them did not vote 2 years ago. Did we, Matt? Did you circle that area?
Well, I think, yeah, what's happened here is that we were considering this outside of sequencing. So if we were to consider the sequencing at the same time, maybe this would have become more evident, but it was not to me either.
Yeah.
That we were going to change the numbers, which means that entire area is now encompassed within the new district. I thought that Councilmember Bialo would continue to be in District 2 for the rest of her term.
If we didn't change the numbers, Jeff, wouldn't Kathy continue to represent District 2, even though she was living in District 4?
Yeah.
And Districts 1 and 4 would come up for election in 2022. Still, if we didn't flop those numbers, if we left the map as written, Kathy would be living in District 4, but she would still be representing District 2. And
No, she can't, because if you're saying District 4 is going to be up for election in 2022, and this is the map that you've adopted, you can't have two different council members in a single district with separate terms.
That's correct. So this is the issue when we went down this path and said we didn't want to know where the council members lived, because you wanted to draw the map without that.
That's correct.
This is the consequence of that decision, that the sequencing would potentially put us in that situation.
But may I speak, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, we made that decision to not draw maps based on incumbent addresses, but I think that that's a different issue than looking at the sequencing now and seeing that a whole swath of what used to be District 4 is now not going to be eligible for voting in the next cycle and having to wait 3 years. So I think those, for me, very different issues. And I don't know whether, had we voted for 105, what the consequences of that would have been. I mean, I haven't plotted my own address on these maps. So map 105, I wonder if that would have made a difference, because that is really concerning, and particularly because of the nature of that downtown area. We have just selected out the very people that we had major concerns about representation, and now we've put the whole burden of not voting on that district. So I mean, I don't know if and because we did talk about the sequencing, but just cursorily trying to eyeball it, we didn't understand what switching the numbers would result in. So I am very concerned about this. It's like a little bit of a shock. So can we just see if we did this switching of numbers and 105, just for my own sense of, was there another alternative that would have not been so bad?
So on number 5, both incumbents would have their numbers changed. District 1 would stay the same, and the other 3 districts' numbers would change, including the incumbents that are termed out in 2024.
Okay, we better go over that.
Yeah, I don't.
So,
I do have a question.
Before you go on, Christina, we need to answer Mayor Protem Biala's question. So she asked if she could see basically her house in 105, her street, and it's circling now with Matt, showing that we have the same problem as 109. Is that correct?
Yeah, as I look at the map, 105, Kathy's house would be in District 3. So it would have a,
So we have the same problem with
We had the
105
same
that we have
problem.
109. So
Which is to the yellow, yeah.
And what is that problem, Lisa?
wait, so if I'm understanding correctly, it means we're changing then the district numbers. And so you would have Christina, David, and I in one district. And right now that's District 4, but because Christina is currently, you're District 3, right, Christina? Right, so that would make that purple become, or the finger pointing, if you will, that would make it become District 3. And then that would make, by the airport district where Kathy is, District 2, which would make where the Highway 1 over to Imjin area become either 1 or 4. And then the one in the northern area from Lake Court up to Michael Beach Road area would become either 1 or 4. So we'll still have the same problem of losing people not being able to vote. Did I articulate that correctly?
I think, yeah, any map, I
That's
think,
correct.
well, any map that switches Councilmember Biala from the south part of Marina to the north part creates this situation. That's what.
So if Kathy buys a house tomorrow at the Dunes, we'd be all right?
Only if it's subsidized by the city.
She can rent.
Okay, so seriously, we'll go to Christina Medina Dirksen. Kathy, if your questions have been answered.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, Christina. Councilmember Dirksen.
Okay, I'm going to take us back to what our guiding principles were here. Now, was sequencing part of those guiding principles? So I know it's a secondary part of it, but when we take a look at what our decision's based on, is it based on what? Communities of interest, am I correct? Or please answer the question, was sequencing part of the consideration?
It was when we were trying to reduce the number of two-time no voters. We talked about, our motion last time was to try to minimize the two-time no voters. And maybe we've done that, I'm not saying that we haven't, I'm not saying we violated that, but that was one of our concerns.
I feel a little blind here. I would like to know how many people would be in that block of population that would be absorbed.
In map 109 or map 105 or both, Christina?
I'm sorry, probably 109 since we were on that track, but maybe 105. We're going to have problems with sequencing across the board anyway, whether it's 105 or 109. The one we were leaning towards,
Well, we
109.
voted yes on 109. That's a done deal. So either reconsider tonight and vote for something else. But let's get probably the answer Christina Medina's Dirksen's questions for maps 109 first, which we said yes to. And then we'll look at 105 and see if there's a significant reduction in the double no voters.
But there are a total of 5,817 people in District 4. And I believe that's the focus number we're looking at.
And so you're saying there's 5,000 people that would not have a vote 2 elections in a row?
But it wouldn't be all of them because there's some
Not all of them.
crossover.
Yeah, not all of them.
So can we give an estimate or can we not give an estimate of the District 4 double no voters? Is it possible?
Yeah, I'm not
Again,
sure.
most of that was over on Reservation Road, right? So there's a lot of businesses in that area was where the layover was, right?
No, it would look like it would be right around your name, right? Berkeley would be a little more. That's what I guess we need to figure out is how many people would this impact?
I'm going to say a third, or I mean 2/3 of the district. It's a guess.
2/3 of 5,000 would be about 3,500.
Didn't you say it was 5,800?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to round up if you're going to round.
It's
Just gonna do a quick calculation. What's 67%?
While we're doing this, what I'd be very curious from Dr. Tilton. You've obviously been through this many times. What do cities do? How do they handle it in general? Because we're not the first city to have this experience.
No, you're not the first city to have this experience, but it would be really, really difficult to pinpoint the number of deferred voters versus accelerated voters. And you're throwing numbers out right now that I think we need to be cautious with throwing these numbers out because I'm hearing 5,800 and round up. Well, they may not all be registered voters. And of those that are registered voters, do they vote? Have they voted? Do they intend to vote? These are all variables that we don't have that information.
Okay, Jeff, do you have advice? Like, should we just bite the bullet? Because no matter what we do, we might run into this problem, or is there another option? And Lane, if you have something to say after Jeff.
Sure, I'll just say that you're required to keep the district number following the incumbent on the 2024 election, and based on the map that you've chosen. As a veteran of running for office twice and doing that crazy thing, I mean, it just creates there's two sides to this. You have to campaign a little harder to get people to come out and vote. But on the other side of that, you're not an at-large city anymore. So your window of folks you're campaigning with is a lot smaller too. So
which doesn't
it all
apply to
depends
Catholic.
on gubernatorial election versus presidential election. What's on the ballot? All those variables come to play.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Lane, do you have anything to add? Lane, did you have anything to add? You're muted.
There we go. Sorry, took a while. No, I think as we've looked at this over the past few months and talked with Jeff, we knew that the sequencing would become an issue, and you would not. Some people would just have to wait an additional 2 years to vote, and others would do that. And we knew that would happen. There just really wasn't any way around it.
Yeah, you all live so close to each other, and with census blocks and all that stuff, it creates a challenge. I think all the maps that were submitted except two paired council members. Sometimes two in one district, sometimes three in one district.
Okay.
I just asked the
Kathy,
question.
go ahead.
So just to make sure I understand what's happening, so I am still in District 2, but only, does that kick in on April or whenever this ordinance comes into effect?
No, you would represent two. If I, is it okay if I respond to see if I understand it
Well,
correctly?
could you just hold so I can understand and get the direction first? So I was elected to District 2. And so I still represent the constituents in District 2 until when? Until the elections or before that or what?
Election is the logical.
So, okay, so up until November of this coming year, I still have the same constituencies. Then after the election, my constituency now becomes this purple area, correct?
It remains District 2.
Right, remains District 2, but it's the purple area.
Right.
Which is pretty much not the same people that elected me,
Right.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if I was gonna do by my new constituency for 2 more years after this, who they didn't know me before, I should go out and knock on everybody's door to introduce me because now I represent them and they didn't do anything to deserve that or not, you know, so that's essentially what's gonna happen, correct?
And the new map designating the new districts would be effective 30 days after its adoption. The new map.
But I think you put it in a good way, even though after the elections, that district didn't elect you, after the elections, you will now represent the people in that district.
Yeah, so the new district's boundaries are blessed because they didn't vote for you, but they got you. But you will no longer represent yourself because you won't live in your district.
That's very clear. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I do understand it. So it's just a little different way of looking at all this from an actual, elected official perspective. So thank you. I understand.
So.
Okay.
No, I have the same understanding, but to further that, then the blue district, which is now District 4, there's nobody in that seat, and this will be the first election for that version of District 4. So we have to all go find good candidates, or hey, public, if you live in that district, we want start running.
So the University Villages, Sea Haven.
People did run last time from that district, by the
Weston
way.
Park, Abrams, Sea Haven, the Dunes. Yeah, Les Martin and Brad, they have a chance to run again.
The red district's in the same boat. They also don't have an incumbent.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't vote last time, but district, yeah. Okay. All right, so we did need to do a motion on the sequencing to add to the, to modify the motion we already have on the floor to adopt the resolution, and to add to that motion that the flipped section, districts 4 and 2 are going to be on the November ballot. So Bob, can you
maybe summarize that action if you'd like me to try to do that? This and the resolution, I think, is still pending before the council. Once we deal with the resolution, then we should go back and rescind our prior introduction of the ordinance and introduce the ordinance with these changes, the flip-flop of the districts, I think, to be.
Okay, so that simplifies things. So the motion on the floor to adopt the resolution stays the same. And Bob has already read it.
Right, and I would add to that resolution that map 109 as presented in the agenda would be revised to designate the denominated District 2 to be District 4. And
the district.
And to designate denominated District 4 to be District 2, both of which will have elections in the year 2022. And then and districts 1 and 3 remain denominated on map 109 as presented in the agenda, and will both have elections in 2024.
No,
No.
no.
Di-
We want, we just want.
District 1 and 4
Three.
will have the elections. 2 and 3 will be in 2024.
You're right. I don't know how I got that wrong. Let's see.
Oh.
And
Oh,
Bob, I sent you an email of this sequencing.
Okay, let's see.
So Bob, let's scratch everything you said and
That's
please
everything I said.
say it again. Say it again when you're comfortable revising that.
Okay.
It's the 109 section, Bob.
The 109 section. I'm looking. Let's see. Okay, here we go, I believe. I have to print this out again. Maybe I can read it off this one. Okay, regarding map 109, regarding the map as presented in the agenda packet, map 109 would be revised to denominate District 2 as District 4 and to denominate District 4 as District 2. District 1 would stay the same, and District 3 as denominated would stay the same. Did I say that correctly? I hope I did.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And then can you say the part about what will be on the ballot this November?
Districts 1 and 4 will be on the ballot in 2022, and districts 2 and 3 would be on the ballot in 2024.
Yep.
There's mud, we're all turtles. Okay, so that's the motion, which is our resolution that's in the staff report, plus that sequencing language that Bob just read. Is everybody clear what the motion is? Okay, let's go to the, well, I guess we don't have to go to the public, but let's go to the public. Let's go to the public. We don't have to go to the public because I've already spoken on this matter of maps, et cetera, but not really on the sequencing. So anyway, let's go to UUCMP. Go ahead, UUCMP.
Hi, it's actually Connie Murray. And I'm here watching as the observer from the League of Women Voters, and I just want to congratulate you. This was I'm so pleased with how prepared you all were. I'm pleased at the how polite you were and how you made your points without harming one another. And with this most recent challenge, you just kept doing that. So it's the democratic process working really well. I congratulate you, and I can hardly wait to write my report to my committee about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. From now on, that's how we're gonna do things around here.
Hope so.
Thanks you, and good night, and thanks for all you're doing to monitor these different district elections around the county. All right, let's go to Karen Anderson.
Thank you. One of the things that we had been told throughout this process was that district lines could be fine-tuned to balance populations. And in map 109, the original 2 and 4 are off by, they're off by 500 potential voters. And it seems to me that the fine tuning could include moving Kathy's block and maybe the 2 streets behind her street into District 2. And that would solve a big problem here. And like I'm saying, we weren't, or maybe I'll ask it, weren't we told that fine tuning could happen once a map was selected? Thanks.
Great point, Karen. All right, we'll close public comment and get to Karen's question. Can fine tuning happen after we've chosen map 109?
I think the challenge we have now is time. So in order to change the map, we'd have to post that map for 7 days and then have another public hearing on that map. And then you have to have a second reading, once you adopt it, plus 30 days. So getting that done before April 17th at this point is almost impossible.
So what we told the council is really, when we came to this meeting, there's no more fine tuning could be done. We're just running out of time at this point. The fine tuning was in the previous meetings.
I don't remember fine tuning in previous meetings, but I understand that we cannot fine tune now. Now you said it's practically impossible, Matt. Does that mean it's impossible?
Bob, you've looked at this very closely.
Yeah, I don't believe that there is time, given the requirements to publish the maps and hold another meeting. I don't believe that there's time to.
Just to be sure, Bob, can you look at a calendar and confirm that?
Part of the problem is it has to be at a regular scheduled meeting. And
so here's the issue I see is that people like Karen and Lisa and a bunch of other people, they cannot vote and they cannot run for office. And so that's taking away some rights. So let's give it a couple minutes just to confirm that the calendar won't allow us to do what might be otherwise possible to change this scenario.
Mr. Mayor, if I could offer one thing that perhaps would be even more difficult is, I believe out of the 29 maps, there were probably one or two that were very close to what she's suggesting. Perhaps one of those maps would have been more appropriate than if that's what we were looking to do.
Okay, let's just let's take a look at one or two of those and see if it does everything that 109 does without the collateral damage.
This is really messy, huh?
I don't think any of us understood what just happened, foresaw what just happened.
Yeah. Although we did as a council agree that we didn't want to have where we were all seated have an influence. I mean,
I'm glad we did that because it would have been a mess trying to keep track of that. And it would have looked very much, very partisan. We did this with good faith and then we had a curveball at the end.
it's an interesting game, that's for sure.
So map 501 keeps Councilmember Biala in District 2.
501.
502 does the same. 503 does the same. 505 or 4. 5 or 6. 507, you get a bigger chunk, so not as clean. That one's not very good. So it looked like between 501 and 50, I think it was 6. Quite a few of them are pretty close to that, but you don't have the neat, you have other things you were looking at earlier that I'm sure go out the door when you start to get into these maps.
I mean, either way, whatever, it seems that whatever we decide, even if we were to go back to one of these other maps, I think that we're going to have another version of challenges that we're facing. I think what's uncomfortable with this is that we didn't see this piece. We didn't talk about this piece as a council. And so I as much as I have mixed feelings on a personal note, I think that we made a decision and we voted really with a lot of thought and due process in this. And I think between that and the timing, I think we should probably stay with what we've decided on.
Kathy?
I am in complete agreement with Councilwoman Berkeley that I think we have spent all evening working out some very difficult issues that I'm sure in any other map, we're going to have all of, or most of those same issues come up. And so I think it's really under water under the bridge at this point. And I would hope that we wouldn't go back and try to examine every one of those maps that Matt just put forth. I wish we had considered it, but then again, if we're looking at where I live and making a map around that just does not feel right to me. I mean, we did this completely blind, and now we're seeing the consequence of that, but that's what we decided, and I think I feel comfortable with that. So it's going to change the way the maps look too. Right now, 109 does look very compact and very large blocks without a whole lot of arms sticking out or indents and all of that. And when we start monkeying around with it because of where I live, just for the possible convenience of having sequencing more simple, I don't think that's going to ultimately serve us well. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the motion on the floor to approve the resolution with the language that Bob read about the November election. And then, Bob, we might have another vote after this, but let's talk about that after this vote is over. So if we could have a roll call vote for the motion on the floor, please.
Councilmember Medina Dirksen.
Can you repeat the motion just one more time?
No.
It was to adopt 109 with the sequence. We adopted 109 already, but to adopt the sequencing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Adopt the
Yes.
resolution with the sequencing language that Bob read.
Before I say that, though, I have looked at the calendar, and the mayor asked me if there would be an opportunity to introduce another map. Now, I would say the council would have to create that map itself. And I don't know how that would be done. But there could, if a map was introduced and put online by March 1st, there would be 7 days before, it would have to remain online for at least 7 days, 7 complete days, and would have to be adopted or introduced, I should say, no later than a special meeting on the 9th of March. It would then have to be approved. The ordinance would have to be approved on the 15th, and that would take it right up to almost the day before the 205 days. So it would really be
Bring it close.
there'd be no margin for error. Let me put it that way. None.
And
So
the concern is if there's any glitch in the process, then we've made the decision to turn it over to the court system.
Yes, that's correct. If the council is not able to adopt a map, then the court would draw the districts and charge the city for that service.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I guess this does raise another question, because when we look at the definition of gerrymandering, it's supposed to be that we're not supposed to be doing it along potential special interests, which could be misconstrued or twisted in a way that we're looking like in favor of our council. I do not want to go down this road. I do not want to see us go down this road. That's my comment. Thank you.
So let's have a roll call, please.
So, Mr. Mayor, do you want me to read back the effect on the resolution one more time? Or you're all clear on that? Okay.
Councilmember Medina Dirksen.
Yes.
Councilmember Berkeley.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Viola.
Yes.
Mayor Delgado.
So thank you. That passes unanimously. Good job, everybody. Now we want to introduce the concept of the next vote, Bob.
Yes, the concept of the next vote. We did take a vote on introducing map 109 as it was presented in the agenda packet this evening. We have now determined through Jeff's good offices that we need to change the denomination of the districts as presented on map 109. So a motion now would be in order by someone who voted in favor of that the introduction of the ordinance, which would be any one of you, to rescind that action, there would be a second and a vote. That action would therefore be rescinded. We would reintroduce the ordinance, making the change of the district swap, I'll call it.
Okay, let's go to Mayor Pro Tem Biala.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please, Anita?
Councilmember Medina Dirksen,
Yes.
Councilmember Berkeley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Biala,
Yes.
Mayor Delgado.
Yes. So that motion passed unanimously. Great. Now we don't have a map anymore.
That's correct. And now a motion to introduce ordinance 109, which I read previously by title only, and make the following changes to the district denominations as presented on map 109 in the agenda packet, which would be changing the denominated District 2 to become District 4, and changing the denominated District 4 to become District 2. The effect of that would be District 4 would have an election coming up in 2024. District 2 would have an election coming up in 2024.
No, 2022.
22, excuse me. District 1 would stay as District 1 with an election in 2022, and District 3 will stay as District 3 with an election in 2024. Those would be the changes to the map that was presented this evening as map 109 in the agenda packet.
Let's go to Christina second. Let's go to Kathy Biala first.
Oh, did we make the motion? That's what my hand.
Oh, he read what the motion could be if you say so moved.
I so move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And we'll go to Christine Medina Dirksen for any comments.
Question. Looking at my map, District 4 turns to District 2, which is up in 2024. And District 2 on the map turns to District 4, which is up in 2022. Correct? Yeah, can you double check that you said that correctly, Mr. Rathi?
Correct. I believe that you said that correctly.
She's asking if you said it correctly.
Did you say it correctly?
Did I, Jeff?
No, we're all right, though. I think we all got it.
Okay.
It needs to be on the record, though.
Yeah.
You started to say it incorrectly, and I jumped in and I said 2022
Yeah.
instead of 2024
Right.
for District 2.
Okay. District 1 stays as District 1 with an election in 2022. District 2 changes to District 4 with an election in 2022. District 3 stays as District 3 with an election in 2024, and District 4 turns to District 2 with an election in 2024.
So does your motion hold, Kathy, with that new language?
Yeah, so the new District 2 has an election in you said
2024.
24. Okay, good. All right.
Does your second hold, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, Kathy, do you have more
Okay.
input?
Correct is not correct.
Kathy, your hand is up. Do you have more input?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay, Lisa, Anita, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Medina Dirksen,
Yes.
Councilmember Berkeley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Biala,
Yes.
Mayor Delgado.
Yes. All right, the motion passed unanimously. Thank you, everyone. I don't think we have any more business tonight, but good job, everybody. And I think the voters will be understanding, except for those in District Old 4 that don't get to vote again.
Yeah. Can we make
Kathy,
one
you gotta
more,
go win them over.
Yeah, Kathy, you got to go win them over.
Sure.
campaign again, but without a vote. Yeah.
Matt, go ahead.
Mayor, can I make just a quick announcement?
Sure, Matt had something. Matt, did you?
Maybe we're gonna say the same thing. I'm not sure, Lane.
Well, I wanted to say it tonight. I was late because the American Public Works Association had their annual banquet, and Marina was highly recognized for many things in that banquet. First of all, our Public Works Director, Brian McMinn, had actually been the president for 2 years through COVID, and he was recognized as the president. Edna Gomez, who retired a couple months ago in December, she was recognized as the administrative assistant for the year.
And that was a surprise, right, Lane? She didn't know she was coming up for that and didn't know.
She was shocked. She would not have come to the event had she knew that she was going to be recognized. She was very surprised. She was very honored. Then we were also recognized for the project of the year, environmental project of the year for under $5 million, which was the Stockade project that got that huge blight, asbestos, lead-filled project and came in under $500,000 under budget. So that was a great project. And then we got recognized for the project of the year under $5 million for our Reservation Road project that used recycled materials from the road, put right back into the asphalt, which saved a ton on greenhouse gas and debris to the landfills. And so Marina was up there quite a bit getting awards. So it was a good day for us.
And then Lane, Tim Flanagan from the former GM at Waste Management District, he was also recognized.
Yes, he was recognized.
And was he enjoying that appreciation?
He was very honored. He talked for a long time.
He always has. That's funny. That's great. That's great.
It was
all
good.
right. So lots of good news tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Mayor, before you adjourn, I'll just mention that we will bring the ordinance back as presented this evening back on March 1st for adoption.
Right.
And so
Thank
we'll
you, Bob.
produce a revised map with the district numbers changed, so it's clear to everyone.
Okay, I don't know if we have Jeff with us any longer, but thanks, Jeff and Matt and everybody that was on that team. Worked with Jeff and everybody, and good job, council. Okay. Have a good rest of the week.